Strapped into a military chopper, a young boy stares out the window, looking straight into his grim future. Off-screen, a voice drops a bomb. Lee Han, the tough-as-nails leader of a local war orphan gang, is literally just 10 years old. Cut to a cold interrogation room. Lee Han sits deadpan, his busted ID sliding across the metal table. The officer smirks, telling the kid to chill, he isn't getting locked up. Instead, he drops a name. Ever heard of? The Ark. Lee Han doesn't miss a beat. You mean that freak academy for psychers? Does that mean I'm one? The suit nods, hyping him up as a genius who is going to literally save humanity. The guy promises Lee Han will never go hungry again. But our boy isn't buying it. He fires back that a full stomach for himself doesn't do squat for his little siblings back home. He lays down an absolute ultimatum. If he ships out to the Ark, the military foots the bill for his siblings. We are talking unlimited food, fresh fits, a safe bed, and actual schooling. The officer just blinks completely, caught off guard by a 10-year-old hustling him like a pro. Finally, he caves and promises to take the kids in. Lee Han's piercing gaze locks onto the man, scanning him for any trace of a lie. But the suit adds one massive catch. This VIP treatment only lasts as long as Lee Han stays alive and kicking as a psycher at the Ark. Lee Han throws him a cold, no duh. Snapping back to the present, he grabs his worn-out duffel bag, turns his back, and preps for the drop. The chopper touches down in a storm of dust. Lee Han hops out onto the tarmac completely solo. Over the radio, the officer drops one last reality check. Psyker powers are strictly ranked, and Lee Han's stats are basically scraping the bottom of the barrel. His final advice: grind like crazy and survive if only for his siblings' sake. Without a word, the kid walks away. Looming ahead is the Ark, a massive, intimidating fortress. Lee Han balls his fists, locking in for the nightmare ahead. Suddenly, a chaotic commotion snaps his head to the side. A mob of recruits is absolutely going off on someone, screaming at him to pack his bags and bounce. One loudmouth is ruthlessly roasting the kid, labeling him a pathetic crybaby who got dragged here against his will. The target of the bullying is sprawled out in the dirt, sobbing. The ringleader, a cocky blonde dude, sneers that weaklings like him are dragging the whole squad's reputation down to the gutter. The crying kid flinches hard. The bystanders start murmuring, wondering who this arrogant blonde guy thinks he is. His eyes suddenly glow with an eerie light as he calls the whole crowd a bunch of brain-dead NPCs. He arrogantly declares he is already on a completely different level. Flexing his status, he reveals he is an officially trained psyker, and effortlessly levitates a jagged rock right in midair. The entire crowd loses their minds. Nobody here has actually seen real magic in person before. Smirking, the blonde kid looks down at the crying victim, taunting him about getting shipped out for being utterly useless. He sadistically adds that the kid will thank him later for putting him out of his misery. With a furious shout, he launches the floating boulder straight at the defenseless boy's head. Boom! Out of nowhere, Lee Han steps in and casually snatches the flying rock barehanded. He deadpans that the attack was embarrassingly slow, and tells the guy he would have done more damage just throwing it like a baseball. The blonde psyker glares, demanding to know who the heck he is. Lee Han smirks. I am your new manners coach. The surrounding crowd instantly goes wild, hyping up an all-out brawl. Unbothered, Lee Han cracks his knuckles and steps to his opponent. You morons, a booming voice echoes. The sea of recruits violently splits open as a terrifying instructor stomps into the circle. He shoots a death glare at the two troublemakers and barks at them to step up. The massive guy demands their names right then and there. The blonde punk quickly announces himself as Del Simon, while our MC casually drops the name Lee Han. The drill sergeant zeroes in on Simon, clocking his previous training. He asks if his special ability is fully awake. Del gloats that right now. He can only rock some basic telekinesis. Meanwhile, Lee Han is standing there completely clueless about what a special ability even means. Bam! The instructor brutally sinks his fist into Simon's gut, folding him in half. He spits on his pride, calling him absolute trash for flexing such a pathetic power level. Then the beast of a man turns to Lee Han. He confirms his name and actually gives him props for stepping up to protect the weak. He hooks Lee Han right in the jaw anyway. Standing over him, the instructor coldly states that if Lee Han cannot even match Simon's weak skills, he is lower than garbage. Sprawled in the dirt, Lee Han gets hit with a brutal ultimatum: awaken telekinesis in exactly 3 weeks, or get kicked to the curb. The Titan finally introduces himself as John Red, the head coach tasked with forging these weaklings into unhinged psychic weapons built to slaughter dragons. Orientation is officially over. Red screams at the entire squad to start running laps around the dirt field, and not stop until he says so. The whistle blows. Hell begins. Del Simon hypes himself up, chanting his own name like a maniac. In the background, Red roars that the second anyone drops, they are permanently out of the program. Lee Han hits the gas, tearing across the massive track. It does not take long before 2 random recruits faceplant into the dust, gasping that they are totally done for. Red instantly stalks over, trashing them as dead weight and screaming for them to pack their bags. He points a massive finger and instantly disqualifies them both. Lee Han ignores the drama and keeps his legs pumping. But deep down, his brain is working overtime, stressing hard over this whole psychic power thing. He shoots a glance at Del Simon, genuinely wondering if he can pull off those same crazy floating tricks. For the first time, Lee Han seriously questions if he actually has any hidden powers locked inside him. Suddenly, another kid starts violently staggering up ahead. He pushes his burning muscles to the absolute limit, but eventually crashes hard into the dirt. Red is on him in a second. He roasts the kid as a fragile loser, barking that if he wants to take a nap, he can do it on the train ride home. Coughing up dust, the boy locks eyes with the terrifying coach. With pure fire in his gaze, he grunts that going home is not an option. Red just stares him down. Out of nowhere, Lee Han grabs the kid's arm and hoists him right back onto his feet. He locks eyes with the instructor, refusing to throw in the towel. He shoots a glance at his teammate. "We're still in this, right?" The kid gives a weak nod. John Red watches like a hawk from the sidelines as Lee Han hoists his buddy up, pushing through the brutal run, while the instructor's piercing gaze tracks their every move. A sharp whistle pierces the air. Halt. The second the command drops, Lee Han eats dirt, his stamina absolutely zeroed out. Red tallies the survivors. Only 40 out of 73 recruits made the cut. He barks that they are off the hook for today, but warns them to buckle up because this hellish sprint is their new daily wake-up call. Groans echo through the ranks. Bright and early the next day, the grind resets. Welcome to the Ark, where 5 in the morning means hitting the ground running. Literally. They finally score some grub at 8 sharp. Later in the classroom, John Red drops a wild concept on them. They need to visualize a core of pure energy, humming somewhere inside their own bodies. Lee Han presses a palm flat against his chest. If he is picking an energy core, he is betting it all on his heart. Cut to lunch hour. A massive crispy cutlet gets slapped onto a metal tray, and Lee Han navigates the crowded mess hall hunting for a spot. He spots Kuro, the kid he carried earlier, and slides into the seat across from him. In Lee Han's mind, Kuro is officially his day one homie, his very first real friend inside the Ark. Before they can even dig in, the vibe shifts. Del Simon struts past, tray in hand, but suddenly slams on the brakes and pivots right toward their table. The air turns freezing. The two lock into a high-tension staring contest right in the middle of the cafeteria. Kuro whispers that Simon is basically a prodigy bred in some elite gifted program. Explains why he acts like he owns the place. Lee Han mutters, though he secretly admits the guy is insanely overpowered with 0 flaws. To make matters worse, they have exactly 3 weeks to master telekinesis. Out of nowhere, Kuro drops a bomb. He actually already knows how to move stuff with his mind. Lee Han is hyped for his bro, calling him an absolute legend. But reality hits hard. He needs to stop hyping others and focus on his own survival. The brutal schedule drags on mind-numbing classes, savage combat drills, and a grueling night sprint. By the time they chow down and scrub off the sweat, lights out hits exactly at 10. Staring at the ceiling, sleep just won't come. Lee Han lies there comparing these plush dorms to the absolute trash-tier life he used to live on the outside. A wave of homesickness hits him, but he brutally shoves it down. He clenches his fists, reminding himself that weakness is simply not an option anymore. Fast forward 2 weeks, the training room erupts as some random kid manages to make a pencil float. Slowly but surely, the whole squad is unlocking their psychic powers. Everyone except Lee Han. He strains until his brain hurts, but nothing budges. Frustration boils over, and a dark thought creeps in. What if he is completely talentless? Kuro feels bad, but admits he has 0 clue how to teach it. Desperation setting in, Lee Han realizes there is only one guy cracked enough to actually pull off a miracle here. He swallows his pride and marches straight up to Del Simon. The prodigy raises an eyebrow, asking what his deal is as Lee Han plants his feet right in front of him. Simon immediately reads the room. He figures out the rookie wants the cheat code to telekinesis and instantly starts roasting him. He sneers, dropping a snarky comment about how he thought people from his country had manners, calling Lee Han straight up arrogant. Without hesitating, Lee Han drops to his knees, begging the prodigy for a lesson. Simon looks down at him, weighing the request. Finally, a twisted smirk crosses his face. He agrees but drops a chilling warning. Do not dare complain about how rough this is going to get. He demands a pencil. And out of nowhere, Simon violently jams the graphite point straight into Lee Han's chest. Lee Han's eyes go wide with shock, his brain glitching as he tries to process the sudden attack. Meanwhile, up in his office, John Red watches the chaos unfold through the glass. The instructor sighs, muttering about how insane it is that designation day is already here. Just as he is getting deep in his feelings about time flying, the office door swings open. A shadowy figure steps inside, calling out for Sergeant Red. John smirks, greeting the newcomer simply as Octo. Waving away a cloud of smoke, Octo instantly complains about the stale cigarette stench. He drops into a chair, demanding the scoop on this fresh batch of meat. Red leans back casually, roasting the rookies as completely useless before pausing. He corrects himself. Maybe 1 or 2 actually have some serious potential. He points out that Del Simon is no joke already, flexing skills way beyond a typical first year. Octo nods, recognizing the name instantly as the final prodigy cranked out by the British elite program. Octo smirks, hyped to see the kid in action. But then, Red's tone shifts as he brings up a total wildcard. He describes this underdog as fiercely loyal, packing more grit than the rest of the squad combined. Sure, he is built to be the ultimate soldier, but the ARC doesn't want grunts, they want superhumans. The harsh truth. If Lee-han cannot awaken his psychic powers, he is getting booted. Hooked by the story, Octo leans in, asking for the kid's name. Octo then asks what the rookies secretly call the sergeant behind his back. Red just chuckles, guessing they probably label him an absolute demon. Cut to the courtyard. John Red stands tall, before the nervous recruits officially declaring that they are about to be ranked as first-year students. But there is a massive catch. Only the ones ready to awaken as true psychers are staying. He breaks it down. Step 1 to God-tier power is external manifestation. The proof, a literal glowing aura flashing in their eyes. If you can't make your eyes shine with raw energy, you are done. Pass the test, and you step up to the elite technician side. Fail, those menacing agents lurking in the background will drag you straight back to the ordinary world. Lee-han stares down the ultimate ultimatum, his jaw set with pure resolve. Out of the corner of his eye, he spots Major Kang watching from the shadows. The courtyard erupts into motion as recruits scramble into formation. Yet Lee-han stays frozen like a statue while the crowd swarms past him. Kuro shoots a panicked glance over his shoulder, terrified for his bro. Meanwhile, Lee-han clamps his hand tightly over his chest, diving deep into intense focus. A chaotic flashback hits Simon violently, striking his chest with that pencil. Pressing hard against the throbbing injury, he desperately wonders if that insane stunt was actually the key. At the time, Lee-han literally thought the prodigy was trying to take him out forever, but Simon casually brushed it off, claiming the strike was barely a flesh wound. The whole point, using raw agony to forcefully trigger his focus, Simon revealed that this very wound was now his gateway to power, ordering him to pull every ounce of energy straight to that burning spot. Clicking the pieces together, Lee-han realizes you cannot just meditate your way into power. The kid already figured out his energy core was literally his own beating heart. From that moment on, the faint static of psychic energy he used to feel starts buzzing loud and clear. Only problem, he has absolutely zero clue how to unleash it. Instructor John Red barks his name, dropping a harsh reality check that he is dead last, and orders him to pick up the pace. With Kuro sweating on the sidelines, Lee-han locks in, refusing to pack his bags and go home. The instructor locks eyes with him, a dangerous glint flashing in his gaze. The entire squad instinctively backs up. Suddenly, a massive shockwave of pure energy blasts out of the boy. Unfazed, the instructor coldly declares that a real soldier follows orders without question, and lunges in for a brutal attack, proving nobody gets a free pass. Panic spikes through Lee-han as his brain scrambles for a countermove. His vision locks onto a simple pen tucked inside the instructor's pocket. Slipping past the lethal strike, he drops into a slick slide and bounces right back to his feet. With a quick flick of his wrist, he flashes the stolen pen. Totally caught off guard, John Red demands to know exactly when the kid snatched it. Maintaining dead eye contact, the boy figures out his internal psychic channels are way too tight. His crazy solution, force them open. Without a second thought, he plunges the pen straight into his own chest. Del, Simon, and Kuro completely lose their minds watching this absolute menace. Red violently yanks him up by the collar, screaming in his face and asking if he actually has a death wish. The bloody pen clatters onto the floor next to a growing crimson puddle. Bleeding but unbothered, Lee-han glares right back with a wild fire in his eyes. The instructor finally lets go, tossing the kid onto the dirt like a rag doll, muttering that he has never met a recruit with such garbage-tier talent. Sprawled out and bleeding heavily, Lee-han is stunned to hear the gruff instructor actually praise his insane stunt. The boy smirks, finally feeling like he just unlocked the tutorial. Catching his breath, he turns to calm a freaking out Kuro, brushing off the gaping chest wound as a minor scratch. That is when Octo steps up, handing over the ultimate proof that he passed the test. Lee-han checks out the slick metal wrapped around his wrist while Octo breaks down the specs of this next-level smart bracelet. The screen lights up, officially locking in his status as an ARC recruit, mind blown by the futuristic gear. He tunes into Octo, listing off the crazy features. But Red cuts the tech review short, barking at the squad to fall in and get ready for class placements. He lays out the brutal reality of ARC, explaining that everyone gets sorted into a strict hierarchy from Class A down to D. It is all based on raw power. Where you land depends entirely on how hard you grinded over the last 3 weeks of hell, with a sliver of hope to rank up later if you put in the work. Red gives a sarcastic slow clap for the 25 survivors, joking that they probably all hate his guts. Octo tries to hide a subtle flinch. Smiling darkly, Red doubles down, proudly claiming the title of the absolute worst guy in the room. He drops the roster bomb, announcing Class A belongs to exactly one guy, Del Simon. Moving down the list, he calls out 4 dudes for Class B, with Kuro making the cut. Red barks at the top 5 elites to follow his lead. Tapping through a glowing datapad, he wraps up the sorting process, throwing 5 kids into Class C and dumping the last 15 into the bottom-tier Class D. Turning his back, he orders the 20 leftovers to march behind Instructor Wei Chen, Stepping out of the shadows is Wei Chen, an absolute unit of a man radiating pure boss energy. Look at this giant has the squad stumbling backward, terrified he might actually be worse than Red. But Wei Chen completely flips the script, flashing a super warm smile, as he introduces himself as their personal weapons coach, promising to ride with them to the very end. The sheer golden retriever energy leaves the traumatized recruits totally speechless. Across the courtyard, Del Simon and Kuro march off with the VIP squad. Suddenly, Del freezes in his tracks and glances over his shoulder. He shoots a quick calculating look at Li Han before blending back into the elite crowd. Li Han just stands there watching the top dog fade into the distance. Kuro is straight up bawling his eyes out over the split. Li Han gives him a chill smile, telling his bro to wipe the tears. He throws up a peace sign, promising to grind his way up the ranks to join him, and Kuro nods in agreement. Wei Chen claps his massive hands, herding his new students toward the training grounds. The squad slowly files into a massive, echoing arena. Stepping onto the mat, the instructor casually hoists a massive, ridiculously heavy training spear, like it weighs absolutely nothing. Wei Chen whips the polearm into a blindingly fast tornado of metal. With deadly precision, he halts the massive blade mere millimeters from Li Han's face, forcing the kid to flinch and throw his hands up. Without missing a beat, Wei Chen transitions into a crazy fluid combo. The razor-sharp edge practically shaves Li Han's cheek as it slices the air. Wrapping up the insane flex, the instructor reveals that mastering melee combat is the key to unlocking their psychic arsenal. He drops a massive lore bomb, explaining that literal dragon scales and bones are the only things tough enough to channel raw psychic juice, which means forging weapons out of dead monsters is the ultimate cheat code to hunting live ones. Li Han speaks up, wondering how humanity survived before they started crafting dragon bone swords. Wei Chen gets serious, explaining that, back in the dark days, it was straight-up brutal street fights where hundreds of psychics got slaughtered just to take down one beast. Ranged attacks were practically useless. To secure a kill, you had to get uncomfortably close, jamming your weapon deep into a weak spot before blowing it up from the inside out with psychic power. The insane psychos who pull off that move are known as strikers. The whole class is shook by this hardcore history lesson. Feeding off their hype, Wei Chen announces it is time for everyone to pick their poison and find a signature weapon. Li Han grabs a heavy wooden staff and drops into a combat stance. Wei Chen raises an eyebrow, asking if the polearm feels right in his grip, and the boy nods with zero hesitation. He tells the giant that the satisfying hum and the rush of wind off the blade just hits different. Watching him swing, the instructor realizes this kid is built different, knowing full well that holding a blade to Sergeant Red's throat was absolute main character behavior. Pushing aside the kid's tragic backstory, Wei Chen sees straight through the trauma. He recognizes one thing for sure: this boy is insanely gifted. The master locks eyes with Li Han, officially welcoming him to the grind. Without missing a beat, our boy nods, fully locking in. With the instructor pledging to push his limits, Li Han tightens his white-knuckled grip on the training staff. Cut to the dojo where he is trading heavy blows with a fellow trainee named Jose. Both fighters are gasping for air, sweat dripping out on the mats. Flashing a cocky smirk, Li Han tells his sparring partner he is looking a little sluggish and offers him an out. But Jose is not having it. He claps back, accusing our main character of stalling to catch his own breath before closing the gap with a furious glare. A brutal swing comes flying, but Li Han perfectly parries the strike. The impact is so massive that Jose's wooden weapon violently splinters into pieces. Seizing that massive opening, our boy sweeps the leg, slamming his rival flat onto the hard floor. Fast forward 2 weeks. Li Han completely dominates the training session, backing the current class leader into a corner until Jose straight up taps out. Catching his breath, Jose gives massive props. He reveals he is officially moving up to Class C, leaving the top dog spot completely wide open. Letting the silence build, Jose locks eyes with his former rival and drops a bombshell. He wants Li Han to take over the throne. Playing it cool, our protagonist shrugs it off, claiming he does not have the authority to just claim the crown. But Jose immediately shuts down the modesty, revealing the whole squad already held a vote behind his back, and it was unanimous. Grateful for the insane backup, Li Han accepts the mantle. Privately, he starts scheming, wondering if this new flex will fast-track his own promotion to Class C. Boom. Sergeant John Red materializes out of nowhere like a final boss, ruthlessly crushing that dream on the spot. Whispers echo through the halls about the sergeant's unhinged rage, with one bruised rookie complaining about getting brutally manhandled by the guy. The vibe is absolutely terrifying. Gossip spreads like wildfire. When the academy finds out the unhinged veteran is about to throw down with a total freshman, the hype goes off the charts. Cut to the dirt arena. Li Han levels a heavy spear at his target while the hulking sergeant casually preps for the slaughter. Flexing an insane aura, Red literally sparks up a cigar using raw telekinetic energy from his palm. Up in the bleachers, the crowd screams for the rookie to cave the instructor's skull in. Chuckling at the disrespect, the sergeant casually flips off the peanut gallery. Unfazed, Li Han drops into a low predatory stance. His knuckles turn white around the wooden shaft. Smirking, Red turns his attention to the trembling squad behind our boy. He brutally mocks them for worshipping a so-called leader who cannot even manifest a single drop of telekinesis. The entire peanut gallery goes dead silent. Red scoffs, calling them delusional, but his eyes narrow. He admits there has to be some hidden sauce behind their blind faith. Barking out Li Han's name, the veteran demands his attention. Our boy instantly responds, slamming his foot into the dust to assert dominance. With terrifying casualness, the sergeant snaps the deadly steel blade off a spear and chunks the blunt pole straight at the kid's head. Li Han snatches it right out of thin air. It is go time. Red dares the freshman to step up and prove he isn't just a complete fraud. Examining the jagged wood, Li Han calmly mentions the splintered end is basically a lethal weapon. Red laughs, asking if the kid is scared of doing actual damage, which our boy coldly denies. Ripping off his uniform jacket, Li Han reveals his shredded physique fully locked in. He tilts his head, asking why the final boss isn't grabbing a blade of his own. Red flashes, a demonic grin, stating he needs to hand out a massive handicap just to keep things entertaining. He lays down one ultra-simple rule. If the sergeant's body touches the dirt, even once the rookie wins. But for Li Han, the beatdown continues, until he screams for mercy. Looking the beast dead in the eyes, Li Han promises there is zero chance he takes an L today. He violently twirls the staff, revving up for a lethal strike. Red mirrors, his energy dropping into a terrifying guard. Up top, the upperclassmen analyze the rookie, deeply impressed by his flawless footwork. Even so, they bet hard against him surviving a literal veteran. Meanwhile, Del Simon violently shoves his way to the front row, craving a front seat ticket to the massacre. Glaring down at the arena, Del mutters about the arrogant punk. Suddenly, an explosive war cry shatters the silence as Li Han launches himself forward like a bullet. A flurry of blinding strikes rains down, but Red weaves through every single blow, with terrifying ghost-like precision. A thrust inches past the instructor's jaw. Pushing his momentum, Li Han vaults into the sky, winding up for a devastating skull-crushing overhead smash. Gravity pulls him down for the kill shot, but before the wood connects, Red's massive hand shoots up and latches onto Li Han's collar mid-air. Using the kid's own momentum, the veteran ruthlessly body slams him over his shoulder. Li Han craters into the dirt, staring up at the towering shadow of his instructor. A steel-toed boot comes crashing down inches from turning the boy's skull to mush. Digging his pole into the earth, Li Han frantically slides out of the kill zone. Gasping for oxygen, he scrambles back to his feet. Red chuckles, darkly flexing his resume as a literal slaughterer of dragons and their bloodthirsty spawn. He promises absolutely zero mercy just because his opponent is a fragile rookie. Flashing back to the grotesque horrors tearing humans apart beyond the walls. The sergeant barks that this minor beatdown is basically child's play compared to the sheer nightmare of facing actual monsters. Taunting the kid for being all bark and no bite, Red charges in sadistically, noting that the punching bag still has some juice left. His vice grip locks onto Li Han's collar a second time. With terrifying ease, he hoists the boy up with one arm and launches him across the courtyard like a rag doll. Our main character skips across the gravel, taking brutal damage. Groaning in agony, he drags himself upright, his bloody fingers still death-gripping the wooden staff. But wait, the monster pauses, wiping a fresh trail of blood from his own cheek, totally shocked that the kid managed to land a stealth hit. The bleachers absolutely erupt, hyping up their boy for drawing first blood. Screaming at the top of his lungs to prove his worth, the kid scrambles to his feet and blitzes forward for another round. John Red just smirks, ready to test the rookie's absolute limits and see what kind of monster he really is. Li Han transforms into a human tornado, whipping his staff in massive sweeping arcs, but the veteran easily weaves right through the deadly strikes. Channeling everything into one more brutal rotation, the boy swings hard, forcing Red to lean back, Matrix style, as the weapon barely grazes past him. Catching onto the kid's brilliant use of centrifugal force to multiply his striking power, the sergeant finally gets why Wei Chen is so hyped about this recruit. "You know what I actually like, you kid?" Red admits, planting his foot down heavy and squaring up for the real deal. Calling for one last all-or-nothing clash, the sergeant braces himself as Li Han launches into the sky for a devastating aerial spin attack. Bam! The weapon literally explodes into splinters against Red's blocking arm, leaving the absolute unit to casually rip a jagged wooden shard straight out of his own chest. Without missing a beat, the sergeant snatches Li Han by the throat, hoisting the kid off the ground single-handedly like a rag doll. Red barks at him to yield, channeling his raw aura straight into the crushing grip around the boy's windpipe. Del Simon panics from the sidelines, screaming that things have gone way too far and begging the kid to tap out before he actually gets killed. But Li Han isn't built to quit choking out, that he would rather die first, right as Wei Chen violently shoves his way through the massive crowd of shocked trainees. Roaring the sergeant's name in pure rage, Wei Chen sprints onto the battlefield, demanding to know if Red is actually trying to murder the boy. Right then, Li Han's body completely shuts down, dropping the unconscious rookie. Red sighs, admitting the crazy kid never actually tapped out, meaning he technically never lost. Cradling the knocked-out boy, a furious Wei Chen desperately tries to figure out his next move. He snaps at the sergeant, declaring he is officially done with this toxic garbage, and the ARC's brutal system just as base alarms start blaring, and Red casually throws his coat back on. Cutting through the chaos, Red bellows at the entire squad to zip it. Facing the stunned recruits, he casually announces that since the kid refused to give up, they might as well hand him the win. Strolling off like nothing happened, he tosses a warning over his shoulder to Wei Chen. Babying the kid will only hold him back, leaving Del Simon to quietly process everything. Del realizes the rookie just clutched up and proved his insane value entirely on his own. Without missing a beat, Red drops a bombshell order: patch the kid up and bump him straight to Class B. Cut to the ARC headquarters, gleaming under the early sunrise, where a heavy door slides open down one of the sterile corridors. A combat medic is absolutely floored by the promotion news pacing next to Red, and doubting the higher-ups will ever greenlight a massive jump from Class D directly to Class B. The sergeant drops facts, revealing the kid possesses pure Class A talent, but gets dragged down in official rankings, purely because his psychic skills haven't awakened yet. But Red calls total nonsense on the brass's logic, arguing that slaying actual dragons takes way more than just some flashy magic tricks. What truly matters is having the sheer guts to plunge a blade into a monster's heart, while staring down unimaginable, soul-crushing terror. Looking at it that way, Red is dead certain. Li Han is geared up to become the most lethal striker the ARC has ever produced, and he refuses to let that kind of generational talent go to waste, prompting the medic to point out how incredibly rare it is for the stone-cold veteran to hype up a rookie this much. Red doubles down, casually betting this kid might actually save the entire world. He then corrects her previous comment, claiming his brutal training methods were purely tough love, not hate. But she instantly shuts that down, calling him a straight-up sadist. Fast forward one entire week and our boy is still stuck recovering in the medbay. The same medic spots instructor Wei Chen lurking outside the ward and presses him on why he is ghosting his favorite student. Caught totally off guard while clutching a gift basket, Wei Chen stammers out that he just brought some random junk food for the kid. When she asks why he is awkwardly loitering in the hall instead of going inside, he mumbles that the timing just feels totally off. Peeking through the door's observation glass, they spot Li Han locked in an intense staring contest with a tiny metal orb resting on his nightstand. Raw aura flares around the rookie as he sweats bullets trying to force his psychic awakening, leaving his two mentors watching with bated breath. Suddenly, the orb twitches, floating briefly into the air before hitting the room with a blinding flash of energy. The eavesdropping duo instantly hype up the massive win with a silent high five, and she nudges him to finally step inside, while he stays totally mind-blown by the kid's insane focus. As his mentor pushes the door open, Li Han breaks his trance, letting the sphere clatter onto the table with a massive, exhausted exhale. The instructor checks in on his recovery, and the boy flashes a huge grin, saying he feels absolutely prime and appreciating the visit. Li Han is even more stoked when Wei Chen drops the massive snack haul on his table, right before the instructor hits him with the ultimate news. Tomorrow he officially enters Class B. He also throws some serious respect on the boy's name for grinding his telekinesis drills even while bedridden. The rookie admits he had to cram some magic skills before discharge, knowing his psychic stats were still sitting at rock bottom. Casually slicing up an apple, Wei Chen nods, explaining that raw combat skills are completely useless for a psyker if they don't have the telekinesis to back it up. He drops a harsh truth bomb when high-tier aerial dogfights break out. You are totally cooked if you drop your blade and cannot pull it back with your mind. Suddenly, a light bulb goes off in the mentor's head. He quickly flags down a nurse, requesting clearance to borrow the patient for a quick field trip. Even though it is dead in the middle of the night, the duo sneaks into the facility's massive training arena, with Li Han tailing right behind his hyped-up teacher. He glances around, questioning why they're even hitting the gym. Wei Chen lays it out straight based on his painfully slow psychic development. The odds of him unlocking a god-tier rare trait are basically zero. The instructor completely bursts his bubble, telling the kid to forget about awakening explosive ignition skills, or any flashy elemental powers. He even crushes the hope of him blinking across rooms with teleportation magic like the rest of his peers. So how exactly is he supposed to survive on the battlefield? The game plan is brutally simple. He needs to grind his basic telekinesis until it breaks past its absolute limits. By doing that, raw, unfiltered mind power transforms into his ultimate weapon. Li Han's eyes go wide the moment he hears the phrase, advanced psychokinesis. Stepping effortlessly across a path of mid-air floating bars, Wei Chen drops some heavy wisdom. Psychic energy isn't magic. It's literally a muscle that gets shredded the more you flex it. He completely shatters the myth of low stat screens, calling those bottom-tier scores a massive illusion, and hypes up this new generation for packing a ridiculous amount of hidden potential. Pushing the kid to stay totally locked in, the instructor demands absolute dedication. Firing back a crisp "Yes, sir," Li Han fully accepts the grueling challenge ahead. He steps right up to the plate. Cut to the very next morning, he's standing dead in his tracks outside the Class B door, taking one heavy breath to steady his nerves before pushing it open. The second he crosses the threshold boom, he slams right into a massive upperclassman. The older dude whips around, totally caught off guard by the collision. But then a spark of recognition hits his eyes and he instantly drops the name Lee Han. The giant lets out a deep chuckle, claiming there isn't a single soul in this entire room who hasn't heard the insane rumors about him. Stepping up as the absolute boss of Class B, he introduces himself as Dmitry Vladimirovich Petrov, tossing out a massive hand for a greeting. Sweating the syllables, Lee Han nervously asks if he seriously has to drop that massive full name every single time. Dmitry just laughs it off, telling him to stick to his first name while crushing his hand in a welcoming grip. Gesturing for the newbie to tag along, he casually mentions that they've shown up at the absolute perfect second for armed combat practice. They stroll right into the massive sparring arena, with Dmitry giving him the grand tour. Meanwhile, Lee Han shifts into a totally focused headspace, getting pumped for some weapon action. His knuckles turn white as he fiercely grips a solid wooden training staff. This isn't just practice. Armed melee combat is literally his ultimate vibe. Exploding off the starting block, he blurs past Dmitry like a total rocket staff locked and loaded. The Russian giant just stands back closely, analyzing the kid's hyper-aggressive stance. In a matter of seconds, he completely mops the floor with a whole squad of his classmates, looming over the groaning bodies scattered across the mats. A snarky voice echoes out, mocking him for enjoying the beatdown. Lee Han spins around only to spot Kuro totally curled up in a defensive ball on the ground. The bully smirks, asking if it's super entertaining to target Kuro's glaring physical weak spots, especially since the kid's entire kit is based purely on mental powers. He brutally adds that they should be kissing the dirt, thankful there aren't any actual psychic death matches here. Watching this toxic drama unfold from the sidelines, Dmitry just observes in silence. Slowly, a crazy smirk creeps onto his face as he tightly clenches his fist. Still pinned down, Kuro's eyes are completely glued to the menacing wooden blade pointed right at his face. Heavy footsteps approach, halting right in his personal space. Dmitry locks eyes with the helpless kid, aggressively demanding to know why he refuses to throw a single punch back. But right then, Del Simon roughly grabs his shoulder, announcing that he's up next for a piece of the action. A third punk smoothly slides into the circle, calling out that he's taking the third slot in this beatdown. Way across the room, Lee Han screeches to an absolute halt in his tracks. Suddenly, the nearby gym doors are violently smashed wide open, forcing every single bully to whip around to see the chaos. Tapping into pure adrenaline, Lee Han launches forward like a missile, ruthlessly whacking one of the attackers with his wooden blade. In one fluid motion, he violently snatches the weapon right out of the second guy's grip. Both punks are literally ragdolled straight across the arena floor. Still shivering on the cold ground, Kuro gazes up totally, holding back a flood of tears. Standing like an absolute tank right in front of him, Lee Han perfectly angles his wooden sword, totally prepped for war. Barely above a whisper, Kuro shakily calls out his savior's name. Shooting a deadly glare over his shoulder, Lee Han grills Dmitry, asking if this garbage 3-on-1 jumping is what they seriously consider open sparring. Ignoring the tension, Kuro just keeps pleading his name, desperately reaching a trembling hand out toward his back. Unfazed, Dmitry calmly rests a heavy palm on his own head, coldly stating that this brutal hazing is simply the Arc Academy way. Why? Because real-life monsters absolutely do not play fair. He levels a finger straight at Lee Han, calling him the actual freak in this scenario for playing the knight in shining armor. He brutally points out that babysitting Kuro is only painting a massive target on the weak kid's back. Down by his side, Lee Han's knuckles violently crack as he balls his hands into furious fists. But even Dmitry casually shrugs, admitting that jumping a guy 3-to-1 is seriously giving off peak loser energy. Humiliated, the trio of bruised attackers just sit there in the dirt, utterly speechless as they spectate the showdown. Flashing a chaotic grin, the giant Russian practically begs Lee Han to step up and demonstrate what actual lethal combat looks like. Locking onto his target, Lee Han drops his voice and asks if that's an official challenge. Zero hesitation, Dmitry explodes off the line, bringing a massive overhead strike raining down, only to hear a deafening clack as Lee Han perfectly deflects the brutal blow. Without missing a single beat, Dmitry follows up, slashing out with a vicious horizontal sweep. Slipping backward by mere inches, Lee Han brilliantly evades the sweeping arc. He totally uses the big guy's own wild momentum against him, letting the heavy swing throw Dmitry entirely off balance. The massive tank awkwardly stumbles forward. Smelling blood in the water, Lee Han instantly revs up for a nasty counter. He flawlessly pivots, sweeping his weapon in a punishing low-level strike. But Dmitry quickly digs his boots into the mat, launching his massive frame straight up into the air. As Lee Han aggressively pushes the offensive, Dmitry wildly weaves out of the hit zone and delivers a sickening point-blank headbutt, dropping the hero flat on his back. Groaning from the pavement, Lee Han grabs his forehead, complaining that tossing a literal headbutt into armed combat is wild. Dusting himself off as he stands tall, Dmitry flexes the fact that he's been breathing Russian Sambo martial arts since his toddler days, straight up guaranteeing that if he gets a grip on him, it's game over. Propping his tired body up with his wooden staff, Li Han sarcastically asks if this guy actually plans on wrestling massive dragons with zero weapons. Without blinking, Dmitri shoots back that if push comes to shove, he wouldn't hesitate to put a giant scaly beast in a brutal sleeper hold. The peanut gallery of benched bullies instantly starts screaming and hyping up their leader. Flustered, Dmitri whips around, demanding his fanboys quit treating him like some kind of coddled infant, complaining that it completely ruins his hardcore tough guy aesthetic. Utterly dumbfounded, Li Han just silently watches this bizarre circus play out. Brushing it off, Dmitri finally snaps his intense focus right back to the deathmatch. "Give me a second to focus," he tells them. Li Han steps right in front of Kuro, squaring up against the whole squad. For a split second, Li Han glances back at Kuro. Bad move. Dmitri screams at him to pay attention and charges in like a bull. Clang. Li Han deflects the incoming blow, swatting the weapon away. Without missing a beat, he glides across the floor, closing the gap. Dmitri launches into a massive sweeping strike, aiming to take off his head, but Li Han goes airborne, vaulting cleanly over the attack. Dmitri snaps his head up. While suspended in midair, Li Han channels his downward momentum into a vicious vertical slam. Crackit connects dead center with Dmitri's wooden blade. The rest of the crew just stares, totally mind-blown. Dmitri's weapon shatters into splinters. Li Han hits the deck, the tip of his own blade completely busted off. Weapons, who needs them? Dmitri tackles Li Han barehanded, bulldozing him straight into the dirt. Crushed under Dmitri's massive frame, Li Han is totally trapped. Dmitri locks him down, screaming at him to tap out. He cranks Li Han's arm backward, barking threats while the crowd hypes him up. But Li Han just smirks. "Do it." "You think I won't?" Dmitri growls. Snap. Bone breaks. The entire room goes dead silent. Li Han collapses, his face twisting in absolute agony, but he refuses to make a sound. Dmitri rises, staring down at the damage he just dealt. Towering over the defeated fighter, he mutters that he told him to quit. Nearby, Kuro watches vision, totally blurred by tears. Turning away, Dmitri actually gives him props. Dude took a broken arm, without letting out a single squeak. He commands one of the lackeys to haul Kuro to the medbay. Suddenly, Li Han forces himself back to his feet. "Man, the guys you fought before must have been total wimps," he spits out. He roars at Dmitri to get back up and end this. Gripping his shattered weapon like his life depends on it, Li Han is ready. Wait. Plot twist. Dmitri is the one out cold, sprawled face down on the mat. Fade to black. Dmitri snaps awake inside the infirmary. He leaps out of bed, totally disoriented, demanding to know where he is. Right next to him, Li Han casually chilling and watching a holo message on his smartwatch. Major Kang's face fills the screen, dropping massive praise. He reveals the other kids are safe, all thanks to Li Han, and swears he'll send a clip of them soon. A genuine smile finally breaks across Li Han's face. The vid wraps up with a group selfie of Kang and the squad signing off with a quick "catch you later." Fighting back tears, Li Han whispers that they look healthy, maybe even put on some good weight. He glances over at his former rival. "Hey, swipe to the next slide for me." Dmitri, still brain-fogged, actually does it. Then he stops. "Wait, why the heck am I helping you?" "Because you literally snapped my arm in half," Li Han fires back. Dmitri scoffs, reminding him that Li Han basically caved in the back of his skull. Li Han just shrugs it off. "Your fault for dropping your guard. That's how we roll at ARC." Dmitri opens his mouth to argue, finds zero words, and just angrily mutters to himself. Keeping it real, Li Han admits he was seeing red during the fight, but insists there's zero bad blood between them now. Dmitri nods, declaring that round 2 will prove who the true top dog is. Meanwhile, Li Han silently kicks himself for making Kuro cry earlier. He realizes he should have just backed Kuro up instead of hijacking his battle. Dmitri gets the vibe, but drops a harsh truth bomb. Kuro might literally not survive. Once he hits year 2, Li Han looks totally lost. Why? They dip out of the medbay and start strolling down the corridor. "Where are we even heading?" Li Han asks. Dmitri keeps walking. "Easier to show you than tell you." They hit the trauma ward. Dmitri casually mentions this is the drop zone for anyone who still has a pulse. Right on cue, medics sprint past, rolling a brutally mangled guy on a gurney. Spooked, Li Han physically recoils to let the bloody cart rush by. "What the hell was that?" he gasps. Dmitri shoots him a dark look, starting to get how insane this place gets. But Li Han hones in on something else. He points down the hall. "Wait, shouldn't the seniors be teenagers like us?" That dude looked grown, like instructor level old. Dmitri turns his back, silently massaging the base of his own neck. Then he drops the darkest secret of the academy. Year 2 cadets get pumped full of experimental serums. Li Han's jaw practically hits the floor when he realizes these shots forcefully age their bodies. Dmitri flashes a grim smile and hits him with reality. They are supposed to be slaughtering dragons in exactly 36 months. Folding his arms, Li Han processes the messed up truth. ARC isn't going to let them have a childhood. But then he totally blindsides Dmitri. Honestly, that's not even a bad thing. Flashback to a freezing, brutal night. A tiny Lee Han admits his only wish was to grow up instantly. Survival meant crossing every line. We see him sprinting through the alleys, clutching a stolen bag, leaving an unconscious man sprawled in his wake. His entire life was a deadly game of cat and mouse against full-grown predators. A massive fist connects with the kid's face. Hitting the pavement hard, he takes another ruthless beating before the thug just walks off, leaving him bleeding in the dirt. Snapping back to reality, Lee Han's eyes are ice cold. He doesn't give a damn about a happy childhood. He just wants to live. Dimitri realizes this kid might be the most unhinged, driven psycho in the entire facility. Turning away, Lee Han nods. Message received. He signals for them to head back out to the yard. Outside, Wei Chen is already screaming the agenda today. They're jumping out of the sky. The instructor barks that it's just a repeat of their ground drills, ordering absolute perfection on gear checks by 4:30 p.m. Beside him, Dimitri locks his rig into place. Someone cracks a joke asking if Lee Han is already homesick for his cozy hospital bed. But our boy just smirks, strapping into his heavy parachute rig like it's absolutely nothing. Peeking inside his drop bag, he spots a massive stash of survival rations. Red flags instantly go off. This definitely isn't a basic jump drill. Meanwhile, Dimitri just facepalms watching clueless rookies like Jose instantly inhale their emergency snacks. Out of nowhere, something locks onto Dimitri's radar. He nudges Lee Han, jabbing a finger toward a lone figure across the tarmac, the legendary Del Simon. Leaning in close, Dimitri hypes up the British prodigy, straight up admitting he's itching to throw hands with the guy. Catching their intense glare, Del snaps his head back, muttering under his breath about what the heck is wrong with that freak. Huddled right beside Lee Han, Kuro refuses to make eye contact with anyone. Lee Han silently calculates the escalating tension, his face dead serious. Wei Chen barks out orders commanding the squad to hustle up. The recruits immediately scramble into formation, hauling their tactical helmets and jump packs toward the choppers. They pack into a massive military transport bird. Strapped in and braced for liftoff, the boys fall under Wei Chen's piercing gaze. As a massive fleet of transport birds darkens the sky, Wei Chen hits the comms, declaring it's officially go time. Down below, John Red and a couple of elite trainers track the vanishing silhouettes. John smirks, dropping a cold comment about how taking out the trash is finally wrapping up. Kuro's internal monologue hits. He can't pinpoint when this nightmare started, but he distinctly remembers flashing visions right before Lee Han crashed into his life. And without fail, those premonitions meant his personal hero was about to clutch up. Lee Han always blitzed in at the perfect second to pull him out of the fire. Except this time, total radio silence. He stares into the void stomach, dropping as the brutal realization hits his ultimate lifesaver isn't showing up today. Rewind exactly 1 hour. The heavy transports cruise over endless ocean waves. The recruits press their faces against the glass, while Lee Han mentally maps out their mystery destination. Suddenly, every smartwatch in the cabin lights up with a chilling ping. They are currently hovering directly above a totally uncharted dead zone. The objective flashes red. Drop in hot. Trust no one. The ultimate wilderness survival exam starts right now. Broadcasting from a covert sub, John Red drops the hammer. They get exactly 48 hours of rations, and the rest is pure grit. Absolute chaos erupts among the rookies. At the thought of being stranded, Del Simon, he literally just yawns, calling the deadly trial a fun little camping trip. Checking his tactical piece, John casually mentions the trainers are officially clocking out. The transmission cuts to black, with one final brutal catch backup isn't arriving for a whole week. Survive or get crushed. Gripping a drenched dropout by the collar, John Red yanks him onto the submarine deck. He shoots a quick glance at his partner, checking if they've fished out the final reject. Scanning the glowing radar on his wrist, the co-trainer nods. The grid is completely wiped of any remaining stragglers. John demands a sitrep on the drop zones from Wei Chen. Turns out, 7 recruits have already squatted up, but Wei strictly warns him to drop the illusion that these kids are harmless angels. Without babysitters breathing down their necks, they instantly devolve into absolute savages. It's straight up Lord of the Flies out there, flexing dominance and hijacking loot instead of cooperating. Cut to the alpha of the winning mob dripping with toxic sarcasm, as he genuinely thanks a violently beaten victim for his snacks. Ripping the zipper open, their eyes light up. The poor kid hadn't even touched a single protein bar, letting the pack immediately tear into the pristine loot. A lackey aggressively barks at the scavengers to save a cut for the boss man, hollering out Carl's name. Stepping out of the shadows, Carl just sneers, calling the whole squad a bunch of absolute clowns. He rips into them mercilessly. They completely fumbled the master plan, hoarding every single crumb on the island before the sun vanishes. Rocking an unbuttoned tactical jacket, Carl scoffs, mocking their pathetic assumption that he built this faction to play nice and share. He lays out the brutal truth: securing an absolute monopoly on the calories is their golden ticket to ruling this hellscape. A hyped-up minion violently roars in agreement. The adrenaline spikes instantly. They're practically vibrating, ready to jump heavy hitters like Dimitri Lee Han, and even the monster Del Simon. But mid-turn, a distant, pathetic whimper forces Carl to freeze. Snapping his neck toward the noise, his predatory instincts kick in. He scans the thick canopy overhead, checking if his goons caught that desperate squeak too. A sinister smirk stretches across his face. Jabbing a finger into the branches, he hypes up his pack for their very next prey. Miles away, a soaking wet, Lee Han drags himself out of the brutal surf. Boots sinking into the sand, he clicks his tongue, annoyed that he blew massive time on a terrible drop. Shaking off the salt water, he openly curses his absolute garbage luck for splashing down right in the middle of the sea. Sweeping his eyes over the exposed coastline, he instantly logs the tactical disadvantage. It's way too out in the open, forcing him to hug the tree line to scope out a hidden base. Plunging deep into the untamed jungle, Lee Han brutally hacks his way through the dense vegetation, hitting a dead sprint through the shadows. Pausing to catch his breath, his genius kicks in. He knows those meager drops won't keep the rabid recruits fed, guaranteeing a chaotic bloodbath of supply theft once desperation hits. Deep in a different sector, the lone wolf prodigy Del Simon abruptly halts. He whips around deadpanning Dimitri and demanding to know why he's tailing him like a shadow. Dimitri doesn't blink boldly, dropping a direct challenge right then and there, but the Brit just swerves him flat out, refusing to burn precious stamina on a random scrap. Frantic Dimitri lunges forward to stop him, quickly backpedaling the disrespect. He swears there's no bad blood, he just desperately needs to test his own limits in a one-on-one clash. Flipping the script, Dimitri casually pitches a temporary truce. Why not vibe and figure each other out? After all, they've got a massive amount of time to kill. Del totally ignores the speech, resuming his relentless pace with Dimitri practically glued to his back. Above them, a blood-red sun finally starts dipping below the deadly horizon. Heavy boots crush the overgrown weeds. A thug whispers that the prize has to be close. Halting his squad, Carl tilts his head up, pure evil spreading across his face. The pack corners a completely helpless Kuro, dangling violently from a massive branch. As the poor kid begs for mercy, the thugs just laugh hysterically, brutally snatching his survival bag straight off his back. Carl snatches the backpack, tossing a sarcastic thanks over his shoulder as his crew strolls off. Left dangling from the branches, Kuro desperately pleads for a lifeline, promising they can just keep his gear. Carl casually looks back, telling the kid he should actually be counting his blessings up there. Why? Because hanging him from a tree saved him from a brutal beatdown before they robbed him blind. Carl smirks, advising Kuro to just chill until the instructors finally drag him down, adding a savage jab that he probably won't starve to death hanging out with the leaves. Kuro totally breaks down, while another bully hollers back that hydration won't be an issue either since a massive storm is rolling in. Abandoned in the pitch-black canopy, Kuro just hangs there completely alone and sobbing into the void. Dark memories flood his mind like Del Simon barking at him to dry his eyes. Because his tears were just annoying, he gets flashbacks of Carl screaming at him to shut his mouth and another dude roasting him for weeping like a literal toddler. It hits him hard. Why is he so cursed that he can't even cry in peace? But suddenly the tears stop. Something catches his attention and he strains his ears in the dark. Barely breathing, he whispers Lee Han's name. Out of nowhere, this tiny glowing orb floats right up to his face. Kuro blinks hard, convinced his mind is playing tricks on him. A rustling sound echoes from the thick brush directly beneath his dangling feet. The leaves part, and Lee Han steps right out of the shadows, stopping at the base of the trunk. Squinting up into the branches, he casually asks what exactly is going on up there. Cut to the next morning, Lee Han is chilling outside a rugged little survival tent. Kuro cautiously pokes his head out of the shelter, looking totally spooked. Catching his eye, Lee Han casually drops a good morning greeting to let him know he is up. Kuro stammers his savior's name from the tent flap. Pointing to a makeshift platter, loaded with cookies and chocolate on the dirt, Lee Han flexes that breakfast is officially served. Sliding into the tent, Lee Han drops some bad news: he couldn't track down Kuro's stolen gear, meaning they are splitting his stash from here on out. Gripping the tray, Kuro completely freezes, drowning in the guilt of feeling like dead weight to his only ally. With massive tears swelling in his eyes, he chokes out a massive thank you and starts aggressively scarfing down the snacks. Lee Han just watches the kid quietly, before casually dropping that a water run is their next mission. High above the survival camp, a swarm of tiny surveillance drones is silently tracking every single move the cadet squads make across the wild terrain. Deep inside a heavily shadowed control room, John Red is glued to a massive wall of live feeds. Octo suddenly blocks the doorway, absolutely roasting John for lighting up a cigarette indoors, but John hits him with a brutal order to shut it. Walking in anyway, Octo questions why he is lurking in the pitch black, and asks if any specific rookie has actually caught his eye yet. Smirking, John just taps the glass of one monitor, gesturing for Octo to come witness this absolute menace of a kid. Enter Knut Meyer, this absolute unit from Norway, who thinks spending 7 entire days surviving on an island is a total joke. His logic, surviving, is too basic. Instead, he is literally crafting a makeshift raft to pull off an insane escape back to Ark. Meanwhile, Lee Han chugs some hydration from his canteen. He passes the bottle over to Kuro, confirming the stash is completely safe to drink, and hinting they need to top it off before making moves. Trekking back toward their base, Lee-han groans about the absolutely brutal heatwave baking the island. He hits Kuro with the harsh reality that they need way more calories if they plan on surviving the rest of this grueling week. Just as Lee-han starts brainstorming what the heck is actually edible out here, Kuro dead stops, right behind his heels. Gripping Lee-han's shoulder like a vice, Kuro practically screams at him to freeze. He violently yanks his friend backward, literal milliseconds, before Lee-han's boot comes down on a rigged branch. Staring down into a brutal hidden pit, Lee-han shudders, pointing out that one wrong step would have left them rotting down there for days. Dropping to one knee, Lee-han locks eyes with Kuro, demanding to know how he sensed that invisible snare. He genuinely questions if Kuro somehow spotted the camouflaged wire. Sweating buckets, Kuro gives a super jittery nod of confirmation. As the kid stumbles through, explaining his weird vision, the puzzle pieces click in Lee-han's brain. This guy literally just glimpsed the future. It hits him. Kuro is casually walking around with short-term precognition, an absolutely broken and super rare ability. Pushing forward, the duo continues, navigating the dense jungle path. Glancing sideways at Kuro, Lee-han's mind races, realizing this shy kid is the ultimate cheat code for this brutal exam. Cut back to their base, where two shadowy figures silently creep up on the abandoned tent. Carl rips back the tarp, peering into the gloom, only to find nothing but totally trashed ration wrappers. His sidekick wants to absolutely wreck the shelter, but Carl logically deduces the targets are just out on a water run. Flashing an incredibly sinister smirk, Carl plots to loop back later and ambush the guys while they are dead asleep. Fast forward, and a completely drained Kuro drags himself into camp celebrating their return. Lee-han nods, gesturing for the kid to hit the tent and catch his breath, but right as Kuro steps forward, Lee-han snaps his arm out, ordering him to freeze. Dropping low, he locks onto a random pebble in the dirt instantly, declaring that their perimeter has been breached. That specific rock, he used it to booby-trap the tent flap, and now it is shoved totally out of place. He traces a finger toward the massive mess of foreign footprints, stomped into the mud. Realizing they are sitting ducks, Lee-han makes the call to instantly scrap the camp and bolt, knowing the raiders are plotting a comeback. Packing fast, the boys vanish into the woods to secure a new hideout. With the sun diving below the horizon, Lee-han urges that they desperately need a secure drop zone before pitch black hits. He checks if Kuro's radar is picking up any threats, but the kid groans that his eyelids are literally shutting down on him. Without warning, Kuro goes totally rigid on the trail, prompting Lee-han to snap his name. Kuro's pulse absolutely skyrockets as a brutal premonition flashes through his skull. He witnesses this massive, nightmare-fueled panther. The vision shifts. Lee-han is locked in a fierce combat stance, gripping his spear. The beast violently launches itself straight for his friend's throat. Snapping back to reality, Kuro goes full hero mode, throwing his entire body weight at Lee-han. A massive shadow, the actual Black Panther, explodes from the brush, brutally clipping Kuro mid-air. The massive impact of the shove sends Lee-han crashing hard into the dirt. The monstrous cat skids to a halt right in front of him, while Kuro is left crumpled in the dirt way behind it. Panicking, Lee-han glances sideways, realizing his spear is laying hopelessly out of reach. The panther's jaws snap open, going straight for the kill. Lee-han squeezes his eyes shut, bracing for the brutal impact. Whoosh! A projectile shreds through the pitch-black woods. It violently slams into the beast, launching it sideways into the dirt. Spooked, the massive cat scrambles up and vanishes into the brush. Stepping out of the shadows, Jose. He checks on our boy, while a stunned Lee-han can only whisper his buddy's name. Jose regroups with Lee-han and Kuro, deep in the overgrown brush, grimacing, as he heavily grips his bloody wrapped-up leg. Lee-han gestures at the gnarly wound, but Jose just shakes his head. He admits some shady campers rigged a trap nearby, leaving him practically crippled. Jose's knees finally buckle. Hitting the dirt, he breathes a huge sigh of relief for bumping into them. Lee-han frowns, mentioning they dodged a similar snare just hours ago. Kuro instantly suspects it is the exact same crew. Jose figures a squad of looters is prowling the zone, though he jokes his pockets are completely empty anyway. He flexes that the second the trap snapped, he inhaled his entire food stash so nobody could steal his snacks. Lee-han just hits him with a deadpan stare. Shaking it off, Lee-han insists they need to ditch this hot zone and find a safe hideout. Cut to Carl chilling totally solo by a crackling campfire. Gazing up at the midnight sky, he zones out into a hardcore flashback. A mysterious dude beside him starts dropping major bombs. The guy smirks and tells Carl that the airport security scanners literally freaked out around him, practically proving he is harboring raw psychic power. Without missing a beat, he pitches Carl a golden ticket into the elite ARC program. But Carl is not sold, stressing about ditching his current movie shoot. The recruiter violently grabs him, fiercely promising that joining the Psychers would unlock a level of insane wealth and global clout that acting could never touch. He locks eyes with the kid, swearing that once this brutal war wraps up, Psychers will strictly control the nation's entire military force, putting Carl at the absolute top of the food chain. Snapping back to reality, Carl pivots toward a towering structure, muttering a frustrated curse. Meanwhile, deep in another patch of woods, Dimitri is grinding out brutal push-ups, while Del Simon is just kicking back in the shade, stuffing his face and watching the sweat drip. He lazily asks the meathead if he ever actually gets exhausted. Del carelessly mentions their rations are hitting critical levels. Dimitri pushes up violently, popping his shoulder joint, demanding to know how Del plans to survive the next 5 days of hell. Slapping his own bulging bicep, Dimitri brags that he is built strictly of iron and muscle. He preaches that if a guy truly wants to dominate the front line, the physical grind never stops. But Del just rolls his eyes, roasting him for being brain dead, and reminding him that true psychers crush enemies with pure mind power. Dimitri fixes him with a chilling glare. Is that right? He openly sighs, complaining that Lee Han is literally the only dude around here worthy of sparring against. Del bites, spinning around to ask if he has actually thrown hands with Lee Han before. A wicked grin stretches across Dimitri's face, realizing he fully hooked him. Fast forward to the crack of dawn. The main squad secures a sick underground cave for shelter. Lee Han greets the crew, pitching a rock-solid game plan. The three of them need to stick together like glue until this hellish week finally ends. Lee Han takes charge, announcing that he and Kuro are heading out to scavenge for kindling and calories. He tasks a banged-up Jose with locking down the fort while they are gone. Jose nods, looking super guilty for dragging the team down. But Lee Han totally hypes him up. He explains that Jose's fire-starting abilities basically give them a massive cheat code in this brutal survival test. Having endless flames equals hot-cooked meals. Kuro looks skeptical, asking how they are supposed to catch anything out here, especially with zero fishing gear, but Lee Han just flashes a confident smirk. He pauses, looking Kuro in the eye, and sincerely thanks him for the clutch rescue earlier, when things went wildly sideways, and for tracking down their current hideout. Lee Han admits that pulling his weight right now is the absolute least he could do. He opens up, confessing his fear that he could not act as Kuro's meat shield forever. But yesterday, the kid proved him totally wrong. Lee Han proudly declares Kuro an absolute psychic prodigy. He makes it crystal clear that Kuro packs enough raw power to wreck enemies and protect the squad, meaning they are officially an unstoppable duo out in this wild arena. Flashing a warm smile, Lee Han drops the ultimate truth. They are true brothers now. This hits Kuro right in the feels, triggering a heartbreaking flashback to his days as a nameless, abandoned orphan back in Japan. Back then, the bullies mockingly labeled him Kuro just for his dark skin. He grew up drowning in toxic hate, but now he finally has a ride or die who sees his massive potential. Lee Han snaps him back, hyping up how insanely broken Kuro's powers actually are, before asking how they should tackle the food shortage. The boys stare down at the crystal-clear creek. Kuro locks onto a target, his eyes glowing as his psychic radar perfectly predicts the fish's exact next movement. Lee Han connects the dots. If Kuro forcefully combines his future sight with raw telekinesis, they can literally snatch dinner straight out of the water like gods. Following the hype, Kuro totally unleashes his aura. A massive fish levitates violently into the air, and Lee Han absolutely loses his mind cheering for his bro. Boom, instant all-you-can-eat buffet. Fast forward to day 3 of this nightmare test. The dynamic duo is marching back with baskets practically overflowing, and Lee Han is hyping Kuro up for effortlessly sniping 8 whole fish. Kuro beams, knowing Jose is going to freak over the feast, while Lee Han throws in that his own gutting skills are getting insanely sharp. But as they stroll up to the safe house, a sketchy crash echoes from deep inside the cave. Lee Han's instincts instantly flare. Screaming at Kuro to hold his position, he fiercely slides down the dirt bank and violently charges the entrance. Bellowing into the darkness to see what went down, his blood runs totally cold. Jose is sprawled out across the gravel, completely knocked out cold. Cut back to the meathead. Dimitri violently hurls a heavy wooden blade at Del Simon, ordering him to catch. Del looks incredibly confused about why the guy is packing dual weapons. For a basic low-stakes paradrop mission, Dimitri fiercely smirks, admitting he is heavily leaning into the dual-wielding meta, because looking badass is half the battle, then asks why Del even agreed to throw down. Del's eyes suddenly widen, realizing that if this crazy brute can genuinely go toe-to-toe with Lee Han, this guy has got to be Dmitry Vladimirovich Petrov, the absolute top dog of Class B. Hoisting his blade, he smirks, claiming he caught wind that getting bumped up to Class A was basically guaranteed for him, and now he just wants to test if our boy actually earned that spot. Sizing him up, Dimitri admits the kid is totally growing on him. Boom, they instantly blitz toward each other. Del perfectly parries the heavy slash, forcing Dimitri into a sudden halt that completely wrecks his fighting flow. Slipping past the very next swing with crazy speed, Del immediately claps back with a nasty counter. He drops a cold line asking if the Class B leader really thought this scrap was already wrapped up. Dimitri just shoots him a lethal death glare, swinging wildly as Del weaves right through the blade's path. Pushing the offensive, Dimitri flexes that a retreating prey just makes the hunt way more fun. He unleashes an insane flurry of strikes, but Del deflects every single one of them. A few heavy impacts finally break through Dell's guard. Smelling blood, Dimitri goes for a massive finishing slash, but Dell smoothly steps out of the kill zone, already reading the guy like an open book. Panic hits Dimitri as he realizes his blind spot is wide open. He trips up, giving Dell the perfect window to wind up and absolutely decimate him while he has zero footing. The hit violently spikes him straight into the dirt. Gritting his teeth, Dimitri uses his weapon as a crutch to force himself back up, screaming out that he finally caught him slipping. Launching a dirty sneak attack from the rear, Dimitri swings, but the steel freezes just millimeters from severing Dell's throat. That is when Dell's eyes ominously flare to life. Suddenly, Dimitri is completely paralyzed, feeling cold steel pressed right against his spine. Dell casually drops the mic, admitting the guy might have won the pure swordplay, but they are literally psychers, not just knights. This flex instantly sparks a crazy thought. Could Li Han actually be even more overpowered than Dimitri? Cut to Li Han, desperately cradling a battered Jose and screaming for his bro to open his eyes. Catching his breath, Han pauses in pure panic. Out of nowhere, Jose groans, cracking an eye open just to roast his friend for screaming so loud, reminding him that he is not a ghost just yet. Chilling around a flickering campfire later on, Han demands to know exactly who jumped him. Coughing it up, Jose drops the names Karl Heinz and his entire squad of 7 goons. He warns that those thugs jacked all their rations and are bound to double back, begging Han to pack up and run. But running, Han is totally not about that life. His blood is boiling and he straight up refuses to let some trash-tier bullies brutalize his best friend and just walk away completely unchecked. Jose just stares in awe at his shifting aura. Flipping the script, Han figures they need to secure a fresh, safe zone first, temporarily letting those toxic rivals believe they actually claimed the territory. The plan is ruthless. The second night falls. It is an all-out ambush. Fast forward to twilight and we see Han and Kuro cloaked perfectly inside the thick brush. Scoping out Karl's squad, chilling inside their stolen cave from a distance, Han smirks, whispering that he totally predicted those rats would claim it as their own base. Giving his partner the green light, he tells Kuro to kick off the chaos whenever he feels it. Han keeps it real, admitting that pulling off a 1 vs 7 sweep solo would be straight up impossible. But as a duo, they are about to mop the floor with these clowns. Locking in, Kuro flashes back to the fact that Han is literally the first person to ever validate his worth, instantly supercharging his powers, and fueled by pure loyalty. To not let his bro down, he unloads an absolute barrage of massive rocks straight toward the hostile camp. Bam! A boulder violently caves in one dude's chest plate. Another goon gets his legs completely swept out from under him, screaming into the dark about what just hit them. The commotion alerts Karl, who barks out that they are getting raided frantically, commanding his squad to scout the perimeter. Instantly, another lackey faceplants hard into the dirt, while the remaining fighters sprint blindly into the fray. Panic spreads as one of them screams to watch out for incoming aerial projectiles and to bob and weave while pushing up. But Kuro is playing chess, not checkers, using his psychic trait to perfectly calculate their rush routes. Homing rocks demolish the thugs who desperately whine about being completely blind in the pitch-black woods. Enter Li Han, catching crazy air as he vaults right over 2 disoriented targets. Spinning his polearm like a lethal blender, he systematically claps each enemy into unconsciousness. Now Karl is left completely stranded among his wrecked crew. Stepping right up to the cavern's mouth, Han locks eyes with the boss, radiating pure main character energy. Squaring up the stage is officially set for the ultimate showdown. Squinting through the shadows, Karl's jaw drops as he finally pieces together who exactly is crashing his party. There is zero chance this lone wolf just bodied 6 trained fighters by himself. Right. Glancing around, Karl instantly realizes there is a sniper in the brush, violently demanding to know who else is out there. Stepping out from the thick foliage, Kuro reveals his hand, but Han quickly waves him off, promising he is going to pack up this arrogant leader all by himself. It absolutely infuriates Karl to process that just 2 random nobodies managed to fold his entire elite squad. Standing tall, Han spits out that this whole raid is pure payback for Jose's suffering. And spoiler alert, he is not pulling a single punch tonight. Snatching a dropped battle rod right off the dirt, Han shuts down the conversation, declaring the talking phase completely over. Chuckling, Karl boasts that he is more than happy to violently school this amateur. But our hero just flashes a savage grin, daring the boss to step up and make it happen. Karl violently lunges forward, swinging his weapon with killer intent, but Han flawlessly parries the strike and instantly smashes a counter right into Karl's jaw, sending the dude staggering backward from the brutal shockwave. Snapping back, the boss throws another wild haymaker only to swing at empty air as Han ducks under. Pivoting hard, Han buries the blunt end of his rod squarely into his opponent's ribcage. The crushing blow folds Karl totally in half, gasping for oxygen. Pinning the jerk down with his weapon, Han mockingly whispers, asking if that little tap actually stung. He then coldly advises the bully to brace for impact because the real beatdown hasn't even loaded up yet. Enraged, Karl shrieks at him to drop the ego and recklessly charges forward again. Effortlessly swatting away the desperate combo, Han suddenly shatters Carl's weapon entirely before judo tossing him aggressively into the dirt. Carl is literally short-circuiting trying to compute how insanely overpowered this kid is. Pacing closer, Han points out that his bro was already badly banged up, meaning the extra torture was completely unnecessary. Towering over the fallen leader, Han listens as Carl violently spits blood and demands total respect. Pushed to the absolute edge, the blonde kid hysterically screeches to never sleep on his potential. We suddenly get a flashback of his tragic past back in Germany, where he was a genius child actor, ruthlessly milked for fame by a clout-chasing father. That toxic dad literally brainwashed him into awakening his psychic genes, scheming to conquer the nation's hierarchy, and absolutely steamroll anybody stepping in their path. Snapping back to reality, Carl forces his battered body upright furiously, declaring that he sacrificed way too much to get clapped by a nobody like Han. And resorting to total scrub tactics, he violently kicks a cloud of blinding dust straight into his enemy's eyes before launching one final desperate suicide charge. Bam! A brutal right hook connects right with his jaw. Kuro sprints into the chaos, screaming Han's name at the top of his lungs. But Carl doesn't even flinch, just keeping up his merciless beatdown on Lee Han. Carl shoots a death glare over his shoulder, barking at Kuro to back the hell off before diving right back into the assault. Kuro freezes utterly helpless watching Carl tower over a battered Lee Han, who is completely sprawled out in the dirt. With a wicked smirk, Carl snatches up Han's fallen staff. "I'm making sure you never pull a stunt like this again," Carl spits. Suddenly, clack, a rock ricochets off the weapon. Carl whips his head around to see Kuro, eyes glowing as his psychic aura violently erupts. "Leave him alone," Kuro bellows. Carl scoffs, daring the kid to step up if he has a death wish. In a flash, he lunges and violently grabs Kuro by the collar, snarling about how he always despised him, and calling him utter trash who doesn't even belong at Ark. But while he's running his mouth, a shadow rises from the dust. Lee Han is back on his feet and instantly delivers a bone-crushing punch straight to Carl's face. Staring him down, Han straight up roasts the guy. "Don't you feel pathetic? Flexing your ego and thinking you could just steamroll us because you brought a whole squad. Del, Simon, Dimitri, Jose, and even Kuro. Every single one of them outclasses you," Han declares. Carl is left absolutely speechless, frozen in shock. Han's voice drips with absolute resolve. "My road to the top is stacked with massive roadblocks." Then he totally goes off screaming, "And you aren't even a blip on my radar." He swings his staff with lethal force. The heavy weapon halts mere inches from Carl's throat, slicing through the tension as Han drops some heavy truth. "Every single person here is bleeding for their own reason to hit the summit," he warns. He coldly tells Carl to pack it up and find a completely different hustle if he actually wants to succeed, and promises literal hell if he ever touches his squad again. Slumped in defeat, Carl spaces out, haunted by memories of his strict dad and the bitter reality that he never even wanted this psyker life. He just lies there, letting the cold forest dirt swallow his pride. Fast forward a bit, and rumor has it, Karl Heinz actually packed his bags and dropped out of Ark for good. The final 3 days in that hellhole of an island painfully drag by. Finally, the massive blades of the rescue choppers slice through the sky. Safe at last, Jose and Kuro are totally traumatized, swearing they would rather die than do that survival garbage again. Meanwhile, a massive crowd of rescued cadets swarms Han, Kuro, and Jose, showering them with gratitude. One mind-blown dude begs Kuro to drop his insane fishing tutorial, while another guy totally geeks out pestering Jose about secretly hoarding that sick ignition ability. But Jose deflects the spotlight, aiming a thumb straight at Lee Han. "Don't look at me," he grins. "That's the absolute goat you should be thanking." Suddenly, a massive holographic projection flares up, officially capping off the brutal survival exam and giving the surviving rookies a huge shout-out for surviving the meat grinder. Chilling next to Del and Simon, Dimitri lets out a massive sigh. "Never in a million years did I think I'd actually be pumped to hear Sergeant Red's grating voice," he jokes. The booming digital voice commands the battered recruits to shut up and file into the transport choppers exactly as their names are called out. Sleek military birds soar over the treacherous island canopy. Inside the steel belly of one of the transports, Sergeant Red is locked in on his squad. He drops a massive bomb. The brass were stalking their every move through the hidden cameras, and the verdict on these 4 was an absolute unanimous yes. The grim instructor reveals the crazy truth. This wasn't just some glorified camping trip. It was a crucible to weed out the weak and forge the true protectors of humanity. With dramatic flair, Red starts rattling off the elite roster: Kuro, Simon, and Dimitri, and the absolute legend himself, Lee Han. He hypes them up officially, declaring that all 4 of them are moving up to the sophomore year. Absolute W. Fast forward to a unicorn-level event at Ark, a literal day off. The rookies are just vibing and soaking up the freedom when Jose rolls up to Lee Han, pitching a casual pickup game of soccer to burn off steam since they haven't touched grass in forever. Buried nose deep in a massive book on his bunk, Han just blinks, soccer tossing the ball between his hands. Jose teases him about whether he even knows how to dribble. Han just smirks and confirms he's got skills. Cut to the sun-baked academy turf, where the boys are hyped for the ultimate scrimmage. Jose rallies the crowd, double-checking if the squads are balanced and ready to clash. Dimitri immediately starts barking at Del, laying down a strict, no psychic cheating rule. Honestly, the academy giving them a break was super sus. It usually meant heavy stuff was going down behind closed doors, like the super-secret first-year faculty summit happening right at that exact second. The agenda ruthlessly judging which cadets had the juice to survive year 2. Inside a sleek, high-tech boardroom, heavy hitters like John Red and Wei Chen are chilling around the table, radiating intense boss energy. The man running the whole show, ARC's chief director Alexander Lacour, clears his throat and kicks off the high-stakes evaluation. Lead scientist Sasha Grace scans her datapad, noticing the tiny squad of 4 prospects this round. She narrows her eyes, demanding the raw, unfiltered tea on these kids. Alexander nods, confirming that Del, Simon, and Dimitri are absolute locks for promotion. But he pumps the brakes, suggesting they dive into the other 2 wildcards first. Starting directly with Li Han ever since stepping foot in ARC, the kids' psychic stats have been absolute trash tier. One skeptical teacher immediately starts throwing shade, arguing that if Red hadn't been heavily playing favorites, Han would be rotting at the absolute bottom of Class D. Intrigued, Alexander leans forward and challenges the room to justify pushing a seemingly weak link up the ranks. Wei Chen immediately steps up to bat. Referencing that completely insane sparring match with Red, he points out that Han isn't just a total beast with melee weapons, but the kid's mental game is absolutely bulletproof. He's got cold, calculated patience and the hardcore grit of a perfect battle-ready soldier. Alexander is genuinely shook, pointing out that Wei literally never glazes anyone like that. John Red jumps in backing the claim by revealing that while his raw power is weak, his telekinesis is insanely precise, and he's literally been using it to biologically armor plate his own spinal cord in real time. Absolute madman behavior. Red drops the wildest detail yet. Han completely self-taught that god-tier technique. 0 mentors, 0 guides. The entire room goes dead silent, just letting that sheer flex sink in. Alexander smirks and greenlights the promotion. Meanwhile, back on the sunlit pitch, Jose is totally gassing Han up for his nasty footwork, despite claiming he was a total noob. But Han just shrugs off the praise, playing it incredibly cool. Over on the sidelines, Dimitri brutally roasts Del, joking about how British guys are supposed to be gods at this sport. But Del defensively snaps back, asking what the hell stereotypes have to do with his cardio. Suddenly, smash cut back to the tense boardroom. Sasha Grace violently slams her palm against the desk. "Are you kidding me right now?" she snaps. Swiping through Kuro's holographic file, she points out the glaring flaw: the kid's mental state is way too fragile. Another instructor fires back, reminding the room that surviving the brutal body modification surgery requires nerves of absolute steel, and that surgery drops right after promotion. Sasha glares daggers at him straight up, asking if he's trying to send a literal kid to his grave. John Red steps in, laying out the facts. They've never seen a recruit level up their psychic stats as insanely fast as Kuro. But Alexander isn't having it. Raw power means nothing if his mind cracks. That's when John Red drops the solution they have to promote Li Han alongside him. Why? Because Li Han is the only anchor keeping Kuro's sanity intact. Alexander rubs his temples, groaning about how Han's name keeps hijacking every single meeting. An instructor chimes in, noting that Han stepped right into that big brother role. Honestly, it's pretty obvious the brass is desperate to push Kuro up the ranks. Cut to the training field where a heated soccer match is going down. A player makes a break for it, but Li Han threads a ridiculously clean pass right through the enemy defense. Jose traps it flawlessly, hyping up the assist. He charges down the field, taunting the opposing squad to try and snatch it from him. Kuro is locked in at the goal line. Scanning the turf, Jose tracks Del and Dimitri sliding into their defensive pockets, ready to intercept. In a total fake-out, Jose backheels the ball straight to Li Han. Han winds up, shoots, and sinks a massive goal, while his squad goes absolutely wild. Jose slaps Han's hand, grinning about how their strat worked perfectly. They make an unstoppable duo. But suddenly, a massive shadow swallows the celebration. It's John Red. He kills the vibe instantly, announcing the board meeting is wrapped. And since the crew is all here, he's dropping the final verdict right now. Boom. All 4 of them are moving up. Dimitri, Del, and Kuro freeze totally, shell-shocked by the massive news. Jose nudges Li Han's shoulder, noticing his buddy's heavy expression. Covering his own disappointment, Jose gives him a genuine congrats on hitting year 2. He tells Han to blaze the trail and keep a spot warm for him. Han just reaches out, locking hands with him, promising they will cross paths again. Red cuts the emotional goodbye short, barking at everyone to hit the showers. The promoted squad. They need to go pack their bags immediately. Before leaving, Li Han spins around and gives the sergeant a solid thank you. He knows Red pulling the strings is the only reason he secured that class leader spot, and definitely the reason he got pushed through the board. Red's gaze darkens, dropping a chilling warning. Hitting the abort button is no longer an option. He tells the kid they'll link up again once year 2 is in the books. His parting words: a grim hope that Lee Han actually survives the nightmare ahead. Han doesn't flinch, just throwing up a sharp salute. Red watches his silhouette fade as the sun sets, casting long shadows over the four boys trekking back to their dorms. Dimitri asks if it's time to roll out, earning a deadpan stare from Del Simon. Kuro, totally anxious, double-checks with Han about meeting up at the secondary medbay. Gripping Kuro's shoulder, Lee Han tells him to chill out. No matter what goes down, they are sticking together through this hell. But Kuro's voice shakes as he admits he is terrified. This isn't just training anymore. They are about to get gutted and rebuilt into adult weapons. Dimitri pumps his fist, practically vibrating with hype. He tells them to stop sweating it because surviving this means unlocking insane power levels. The metallic doors of the secondary medbay slide open and a sharp voice greets the squad. It's Dr. Sasha Grace, looking totally unfazed by their nerves. She casually drops that she owns their lives for the next 5 weeks. Lee Han raises an eyebrow instantly, questioning the massive time gap. She breaks it down. They are getting force-aged into physical prime. The first 2 weeks, floating unconscious inside fluid-filled cultivation pods. The remaining 3 weeks will be brutal physical rehab. Dimitri, Del, and Kuro visibly pale at the thought of being locked in a sci-fi tube for 14 days straight. Tightening his grip on his duffel bag, Lee Han throws up a peace sign. He casually tells the crew he will catch them on the flip side in 2 weeks. The trio just stares at him. Breaking the tension, Dimitri and Kuro slap their hands over Han's in a silent brotherhood pact, while Sasha watches the whole dynamic unfold. Dimitri totally bullies Del into tossing his hand in, completing the squad circle. Cut to a week earlier where Sasha is commanding her team to inject the tanks. The thick cultivation serum floods the massive glass tubes. Inside, Lee Han and Del Simon are completely submerged in the glowing, heavy fluid. Floating nearby, Octo mentally groans about feeling like absolute trash. Meanwhile, Lee Han's chest burns, panic setting in as it feels like he's literally drowning. Monitoring the screens, Sasha whispers for them to just hang tough. The sedative is kicking in, and they'll be knocked out cold any second now. Staring at the pods, she knows tonight's grueling procedure will seal their ultimate destiny. Pacing through the sterile lab, the brilliant scientist wrestles with her own morals. Is treating kids like lab rats really worth saving humanity? Snapping her out of it, an assistant points out that the professor looks like she hasn't slept in days. The assistant practically begs her to go touch some grass and take a breather. Yielding, Sasha drags herself toward the staff lounge to grab a coffee. But John Red is already lounging there. He smirks, calling out her hypocrisy. Why hover over the medbay 24/7 if she supposedly doesn't give a damn about these kids? His gaze locks onto hers, dead serious. He reminds her that if she accidentally fries the entire roster, the higher-ups will have his head on a pike. Sasha shuts her eyes, rubbing away the migraine. Slumping into a chair, she brushes off his warning, confirming the vitals are perfectly stable. Because they survived Phase 1, the team is currently pumping in Round 2 of the serum. And this batch, it's a pure, hyper-concentrated formula. Extracted straight from a dragon's psychic core, literally a dragon heart. Red's expression darkens, realizing this insane juice is going to violently mutate their cardiovascular systems. It forces their human hearts to sync with the dragon's pulse brute, forcing a massive psychic awakening. Suddenly, a blaring alarm violently erupts from Sasha's smartwatch. They both whip around, eyes wide with dread. Without a single word, Sasha bolts out the door, sprinting down the corridor like her life depends on it. What the hell is going on in there? The head researcher demands. Inside the containment tank, Lee Han thrashes violently. An assistant bursts in, panicking, warning them the kid just woke up mid-procedure and is trapped in pure, unimaginable agony. Watching him suffer, Sasha lunges toward the glass, screaming that they have to abort and pull him out right now. She makes a desperate grab for the emergency release lever. But before her fingers even brush the metal, a heavy hand clamps down on her wrist. It is John Red. Sasha glares at him, demanding to know why he is letting this torture continue. John's eyes are cold as ice, stating the kid has to endure this if he wants to make it to year 2. Flash forward, and we are chilling in Sasha's office. A clearly older, leveled-up Lee Han sits across from her as she shoots him, a warm smile asking how he is holding up. He plays it cool, crediting her for keeping him in one piece. Sasha then drops a massive bombshell, revealing the Academy has literally never encountered a psyker like him before. His body actively fights off its own psychic awakening. We flash back to that horrific day, Sasha screaming her lungs out, begging them to cut the power, before the strain literally tore him apart. She realizes Han did not claw his way to the next rank, using magic. Back then, John Red had pinned her back, ordering her to scrap the awakening protocol entirely, because he knew this absolute unit would survive on pure grit alone. Snapping back to reality, Sasha hits Han with the news that he is officially stamped as a special anomaly. She double-checks for any lingering side effects. Han just smirks, claiming he actually feels totally hyped up. Plus, look on the bright side. He will not get kicked to the curb over garbage grades anymore. Staring at him, Sasha is genuinely blown away. The kid's mental fortitude is completely off the charts. And it suddenly clicks, this raw, unbreakable willpower was exactly what the sergeant was banking on all along. Wrapping up their chat, she waves him off, theorizing his ironclad mindset is the exact reason his body rejects psyker energy. Stepping outside, Han is instantly ambushed by a grinning Dimitri, who claims he has been waiting forever, and hypes up the fact that they are officially sophomores now. Meanwhile, the ultimate edgelord Del Simon glares at them from the shadows. Han cracks a smile, joking about how those 5 weeks of hell practically flew by. Sweeping his gaze over the crew, he notices the crazy glow-ups, pointing out how much Kuro has changed. Honestly, Han is just stoked that nobody ended up in a body bag. Del scoffs, whipping around to violently remind Han that he definitely is not the boss of this squad. While Del aggressively stomps off, Dimitri just laughs it off, telling Han to ignore the guy's hardcore, edgy teenager phase. Moving on, the Year 2 campus looks pretty familiar, but the game has totally changed. It is all about squad tactics now. We are talking teams of 4 to 10 people, making up 12 brutal rival factions for the entire sophomore class. Han steps into his shiny new dorm, totally weirded out by the sheer luxury of actually having his own private space for once. Enter Kato Suki. This smug guy rolls up, declaring himself the big boss of Squad 7, and immediately runs a roll call on Han and Kuro. Gathering his new pawns, Kato breaks down the grind. They are going to be slammed with training, but the main meta is gunplay, sky-high, dogfights, and ultra-realistic combat sims. Playing the teacher, Kato quizzes them on why they even bother with guns. Han does not miss a beat, stating they obviously need firepower to mow down the monster grunts. Kato nods, detailing the mob types: big dumb ogres, cannon fodder grunts, and savage werewolves. Basically pure muscle with 0 brain cells. The real nightmare, the Elu. These big brain commanders pull the strings, and worse they come, fully strapped with devastating psychic powers. Kato drops some crucial lore, explaining an Elu can totally block physical hits using psychic shields. But here is the catch: they are not god tier like dragons. Their mana pool has a hard cap. If you push them, they run dry. Kato then pivots, hyping up the sky, battles, and combat sims as the real deal, simply because it is a pure, brutal turf war between the squads. These sims are not a joke. They are intense mini-wars thrown down in the massive artificial jungle known as Ark. The crown jewel of this bloodsport is Capture the Flag. It is the ultimate flex of a squad's raw power and galaxy brain tactics. Kato issues a grim warning. Sure, the weapons are blunted, but taking a chunk of heavy steel to the face will still put you in a coma. Then there is aerial combat, a high-stakes brawl, where the only goal is yeeting the enemy team right off their hovering platforms. For this to work, Kato explains, you absolutely need a god-tier support player. Someone with enough juice to remotely pilot multiple hoverboards at once. Locking eyes with Kuro, Kato smirks, practically drooling over the fact that their squad finally snagged a heavy-hitting psyker for the job. Kuro immediately shrinks back, totally overwhelmed by the massive pressure. Kato leans in, asking if the kid can handle the heat. Before Kuro can even breathe, some beefed-up upperclassman barks at him, demanding to know why he is stuttering, and barking that in this squad you follow orders or else. Seeing his boy backed into a corner, Han steps up. He vouches for Kuro's skills, but bluntly tells the meathead to back off and stop suffocating him. The veteran glares daggers at Han. He snarls at the rookie to keep his mouth shut, demanding to know who gave a nobody the right to speak. Kato raises a hand, playing peacekeeper. He admits Han makes a fair point since they are fresh meat, but his tone turns icy. He orders Han to show some respect to the hardened vets. Flashing a highly toxic smile, Kato decides to drop the act. He looks Han dead in the eyes, and admits he did not even want him on the roster. The only reason Han made the cut, Kato wanted Kuro's broken powers, and they were a frustrating package deal. Kato coldly commands Han to just sit in the corner and stay out of the way, brutally roasting him for having bottom-tier psychic stats. The whole room erupts into mocking laughter, while Han quietly curls his fingers into a tight fist. But Han does not blow up. He just shrugs it off like it is nothing. Flashing a dangerously calm smile, he reaches out his hand, promising to be the best little soldier he can be, and swearing he will not step on Boss Kato's precious toes. Kato reluctantly takes the bait, but instantly, Lee Han locks in a vice-like, bone-crushing handshake. The squad leader silently vows to see how long this cocky freshman can actually survive. Still flashing that alpha smirk, Han eagerly accepts the unspoken challenge. After washing the tension off in the showers, it is time for the real show. Out on the firing range, the cadets start popping off rifle rounds. Han is an absolute machine, landing dead-center headshots with terrifying accuracy. From the sidelines, Katsuki glares totally speechless. Han tears through the tactical obstacle course like a demon, dropping targets flawlessly while sprinting at full speed. Spinning around, the boy practically radiates confidence, knowing damn well Kato will not dare call him dead weight again. But his hype fades when he spots Kuro, who is trembling and looking insanely anxious in the background. Snap out of it. Kuro, a hardened vet, barks across the chaos. The poor kid is straight up panicking, his hands shaking uncontrollably as he struggles to handle his rifle. Kato storms over, visibly fed up with the whole mess. Cut to later, Lee Han stands completely still under the shower spray, trapped in his own head, questioning if he is seriously still too weak to cut it. Toweling off back in his dorm, that heavy vibe lingers. Once they hit the locker room, Kato drops the harsh reality. Han is riding the bench on standby mode today. A seasoned vet steps in to soften the blow, breaking down the stats. Their current crew is already absolutely stacked with melee fighters for this next sim. Not wanting him to feel totally ghosted, Kato tells Han to hit up the spectator, stands at the training arena, and watch the absolute mayhem unfold from the sidelines. Gripping his tablet, Han stares intently at a digital photo and totally brushes off the benching, claiming it is all good. Meanwhile, the stadium speakers boom, hyping up today's massive Capture the Flag showdown, Squad 3 clashing with Squad 9. Kato points down into the pit, warning his teammate that, since Squad 3 just drafted some mysterious fresh blood, they desperately need to download the enemy's battle strats. Suddenly, the puzzle pieces click perfectly in Lee Han's brain. That hyped-up rookie stepping onto the field has to be none other than Del Simon. Down in the dirt, the man himself, Del Simon, aggressively pushes forward alongside his ally, totally locked in as the wargame kicks off. The stands were absolutely buzzing with whispers about this brand new psychic prodigy. Squad 9's captain scoffed, wondering if the enemy was seriously dumb enough to try a straight-up head-on rush. But Squad 3 was totally unbothered. With a top-tier psyker locked in, they had literally zero reasons to sweat. Enter Del Simon. Blazing with confidence, he bragged he was about to solo the entire roster and snatch their flag like it was child's play. Panicking, the rival leader screamed at his crew to blitz Del before he could even flex his powers. Too late. Squad 9 suddenly gripped empty air. Their weapons completely vanished as Del simply raised a single hand. Jaws dropped across the arena. Dozens of blades levitated menacingly above them, and with one flick of his wrist, Del rained the steel down, instantly wiping the opposing squad. Push up, Squad 3's leader roared. Del just smirked, watching his crew steamroll right into the chaos for a brutal clash. It was an absolute massacre. Squad 3 utterly flattened the opposition, with their captain hoisting the enemy flag high to flex the flawless victory. Cut back to the arena prep zone. Kaito broke it down for Kuro. Securing a cracked psyker was non-negotiable, and they were about to run the exact same playbook. Kuro looked visibly stressed out by the pressure. Stepping up, Lee Han cut in straight up, telling Kaito the strategy was cooked. Han tried to explain that Squad 9 zeroed out on actual tactics, just hard carrying through raw individual stats. He started to push the point, then caught his tongue. Kaito wasn't letting it slide. Glaring back, the squad leader practically dared Han, demanding to know if he thought he should be calling the shots instead. It finally clicked for Han. This was why his captain constantly threw shade his way. Just then, an older veteran waved Han over, flashing an approving thumbs up. The two dipped out of the arena to talk privately. The vet leveled with him. Han was an absolute prodigy, but Squad 7 was completely the wrong vibe for him. And honestly, everyone else felt it too. Realizing Kaito was deliberately capping his potential, Han asked point blank why he was such a bad fit. The truth dropped hard. Han never backed down from the boss, and realistically, his battle IQ was outshining Kaito's on the regular. But a team cannot survive with two alphas. If the rest of the crew started second-guessing Kaito's calls, the whole squad would totally fracture. The vet delivered a harsh reality check. As long as Kaito held the crown, Han would be permanently benched from simulation training. The only play left was to bounce. Han shut his eyes, letting the heavy truth sink in. A squad survives on blind loyalty to its shot caller. By just breathing, he was a massive threat to that dynamic. The kid finally decided it was time to pull the trigger on a transfer. Fast forward to sundown at the ARC facilities. Han stood dead serious in front of an instructor, sliding his transfer papers across the desk. Wei Chen scanned the documents, his eyes narrowing as he asked if Han was absolutely certain about making this drastic move. Flashing a confident smirk, Han gave him the green light. Wei Chen sighed, explaining this would trigger a massive board meeting with the second-year higher-ups. It was going to drag out. Chilling back in his dorm, Han realized this delay was actually the ultimate buff. It bought him crucial prep time. While locked in waiting mode, he went ghost grinding out his solo training and hardcore analyzing the other squad's battle tapes. His door suddenly busted open. Kuro burst in, instantly grilling Han about how the massive meeting with the brass actually went down. But Han dodged the question, hyping up tomorrow's aerial dogfight instead. Kuro casually dropped an insane flex. He was now juggling 4 platforms at once. Not just empty platforms either, fully loaded with squad mates. Han was hyped, declaring that this insane level up literally made Kuro the apex predator of the second years. He pumped his boy up, telling him to ditch the nerves because he'd be hyping him from the stands. Kuro grinned, deeply moved by the ultimate bro energy. Game day. The arena was packed with cadets losing their minds over Squad 7's secret weapon, dying to see the hype turn into reality. Lost in the massive sea of screaming fans, Han locked onto the Jumbotron, his eyes tracking Kuro's every move. Floating on the launch pad, Kaito barked the order to push up, putting everything on their ace supporters' shoulders. Kuro took a deep breath, getting totally dialed in. The buzzer sounded. Squad 1 versus Squad 7 in a high-octane sky battle. Nailing aerial dogfights was literally life or death out there, especially when fighting airborne dragons. These hover platforms were the ultimate meta. Usually a single cadet piloted 2 boards to either juke attacks or dive bomb the enemy. But the MVP role, the supporter, they hijacked multiple boards at once, acting as the ultimate battery pack, so the front line wouldn't burn out. Watching the broadcast, Han knew Kuro was literally built for this. Managing 4 platforms simultaneously was a massive cheat code. "Go Kaito," commanded. His ego was off the charts, totally convinced that sticking to his script guaranteed an easy win. He pushed his vanguard straight into the meat grinder. Across the airspace, Squad 1 revved up and charged in for the kill. One of Squad 7's frontliners surged forward, his eyes widening. The enemy was literally moving frame for frame, just like Kaito predicted. 2 attackers from Squad 1 locked eyes, syncing up instantly. They broke formation, flanking hard left and right to trap them. An enemy player launched himself off his board, tackling a Squad 7 vanguard mid-air and sending him plummeting into the void. Simultaneously, Kaito delivered a brutal highlight reel strike to another foe. He smirked as the guy dropped, utterly obsessed with his own galaxy brain tactics working flawlessly. The crowd was going feral. Spectators were screaming about how Squad 7 was basically reading the enemy's minds like an open book. Flashback to their strategy session. Kaito heavily exposed Squad 1's lack of a decent supporter, locking Kuro in as their win condition. That is exactly when Han pulled his boy aside, telling Kuro to unleash his precognition ability to completely break the game. The vet nodded, totally down to shift the platforms to counter whatever the rival squad threw at them. He hyped the crew up, claiming they'd wipe the floor with everyone if they locked into close quarters brawling. Watching from the sidelines, Lee Han figured that Kaito's strat was actually cooking. Down in the pit, the 2 seasoned fighters squared up again, Kuro locked in entirely, fully aware that a single slip-up would completely throw the match. He sparked his psychic radar, reading the flow of the brawl before it even happened. Out of nowhere, a Squad 1 heavy rushed in and absolutely flatlined a Squad 7 rookie. The final duo from the opposing squad suddenly realized they were the last ones standing. Squad 7 instantly grouped up to box them in, keeping Kuro shielded in the backline. The rivals quickly did the math, realizing that if they didn't snipe the support class right now, it was game over. Squad 1's captain flashed a subtle hand sign to his boy, locking in Plan A. His partner caught the drift immediately. He blasted forward at breakneck speed. Kaito braced himself for a basic head-on clash, screaming for his crew to hold the line. But the dude pulled a massive brain play, literally using his knocked-out bro as a launch pad to vault straight over the frontliners. He sailed right through the gap between Squad 7's defenders. The other rival locked them down from behind, while Kaito desperately yelled at his guys to intercept the jumper. But it was too late, as the first attacker ghosted right past them, leaving the heavy hitters completely in the dust. Kaito whipped around, watching in pure panic as the dude zeroed in on Kuro. A teammate hollered at Kaito to drop the chase, since the remaining enemy was still swinging wildly to take them out. Up in the bleachers, Han shook his head, knowing they completely fumbled by letting Kuro get isolated from the pack. Flashing back to their prep talk, Kaito had drilled it into Kuro's head to always keep platforms 4 and 8 hovering as his personal shields. The rival came flying at Kuro like a heat-seeking missile. Suddenly, the rookie remembered the drill and instantly summoned platforms 4 and 8, throwing them up to tank the massive hit. But the enemy just readied his blade for round 2, while Kuro looked absolutely gassed from the psychic strain. Back at the front line, the other Squad 1 brawler finally ate dirt. The surviving Squad 7 guys stared down at the knocked-out rival. Kaito immediately pushed forward, demanding a status check on the backline. That is when he saw it, the last Squad 1 member towering over a wrecked Kuro. Flashing a sinister smirk, the dude locked eyes with the rest of the squad, then blitzed straight through them, blasting the remaining Squad 7 guys completely off their platforms. The crowd up top started whispering, agreeing that while Kuro's psychic powers were totally cracked, his actual fighting stats were basically zero. Lee Han put the pieces together, realizing Kaito's entire strategy was a massive gamble, resting entirely on Kuro's psychic carry. Hitting the deck hard, Kuro desperately tried to spark his powers again, but the rival just smashed the platform right in his face. It instantly blew up, leaving the enemy coldly staring down at the bruised support. Kuro stayed pinned to the floor, gasping for air as his attacker hoisted his weapon high, almost feeling bad about how it had to end. The crazy pressure had finally forced Kuro to crack. Giant Jumbotron flashed Squad 1 as the undisputed winners, sending the arena into absolute hype. Han just stood there thinking if he had been the shot caller, he never would have left Kuro hanging solo like that. Fast forward 3 weeks, Wei Chen summoned Han to the office to chat about that major paperwork he had dropped off. The instructor dropped a total bomb, revealing that his petition to forge a brand new squad actually got the green light. Han was completely shook by the approval. Wei Chen laid it out, explaining that because his leadership stats were off the charts, the higher-ups wanted to truly test his real-world clout and riz. He slid over the fine print, stating Han needed a minimum of 4 members, but here was the catch. He could only poach one single person per existing squad. Reading those brutal terms, Han instantly knew the other captains were going to gatekeep their top-tier players with absolutely everything they had. But he just balled his fist, hyper-focused on building this absolute dream team no matter what it took. Wei Chen dismissed him, hyping him up to see the chaos he was about to cause, and Han confidently stepped out. Walking down the hall, his brain immediately went to Jose and Kuro, his literal day ones. But since Jose was missing in action right now, he figured locking down Kuro was mission priority number 1. Han paused mid-stride as another heavy hitter popped into his head. Pivoting hard, he marched right up to Dimitri's dorm and banged on the door. Dimitri swung it open with a chill smirk, asking what was up. Meanwhile, somewhere else, a dude was literally clutching his skull and whining loudly. He was venting to his bro that their win rate was completely tanking, all because of Kuro crying that they should have bagged Simon instead, even if the recruitment was a nightmare. He started hyping up Del Simon's insane stats, bragging how the guy wasn't just a beast in hand-to-hand combat, but had literally soloed entire enemy squads with just his raw powers. Standing just around the corner, Kuro had to swallow the bitter pill of hearing them call him total dead weight, claiming his psychic abilities were completely overhyped. He just stood there, frozen, as his own teammates ruthlessly admitted they only deployed him, because they literally did not have a backup to fill the slot. Cut back to the dorms. Dmitry Vladimirovich Petrov raised an eyebrow, asking if a fresh squad was actually dropping, and who else was on the drafting block besides his own fine self. Li Han kept it completely real, admitting he kicked off this whole crazy scheme just to snatch Kuro, but Dmitry scoffed, highly doubting any captain would just surrender a player for free. Han then aimed a finger straight at Dmitry, pressing the giant that he still had not given a straight yes or no. Dmitry flashed a polite smile, thanked him for the invite, but immediately rejected him flat out. He shut it down by explaining he was basically the heir to the Squad 5 throne, and ghosting his day ones just was not in his DNA. Li Han takes a beat, his eyes fluttering shut as he nods in silent agreement. Dmitry pivots, rolling the tension out of his neck, and tosses back that there is just one more thing. A smirk creeps onto his face as he admits that playing the villain is way more thrilling than playing buddy-buddy. Giving Li Han a patronizing pat on the shoulder, Dmitry tells him to save the tears for their next showdown. Li Han does not miss a beat, promising to snap both of his arms in half. Strolling away, Li Han catches the whispers of 2 bystanders, throwing shade at his sudden main character energy to lead a crew. More haters call him an arrogant punk, but he brushes off the noise like it is nothing. Suddenly, he freezes his bold move to forge his own squad, just painted a massive target on his back, drawing intense glares from every other captain. Piercing him with a death stare, one captain demands if this is his twisted version of gratitude. He spits that Li Han can go rogue and play leader all he wants, but snatching Kuro away is completely off the table. Blocking his path, the rival captain and his entire squad form a human wall right in front of him. Refusing to back down, Li Han drops a harsh truth bomb. Kuro is just wasting his god-tier potential under such garbage leadership. The captain snaps back, telling him to check his ego and insisting Kuro is destined to be the MVP of Squad 7. Li Han claps back, asking if this guy would seriously just sit around waiting for the enemy to attack in a real war. He doubles down, declaring he can unlock Kuro's max stats right here, right now. He goes on to preach that a true commander drags his team to victory, no matter the handicaps, and playing the blame game will never flip a loss into a win. Pushed past his breaking point, the captain fists Li Han's collar, screaming in his face that no amount of smooth talking will let him walk away with Kuro. Unfazed, Li Han deadpans that the choice was never up to either of them. It is 100% Kuro's call. Whipping his head around, the furious leader locks eyes with Kuro. He completely loses it, barking a psycho threat that if Kuro actually jumps ship, he is a dead man walking. Kuro flinches at the raw menace, but Li Han steps up to roast the captain, calling him out as all bark and no bite, claiming he would still be yapping even from 6 feet under. That pushes the captain over the edge. He launches a brutal right hook, sending Li Han crashing into the dirt, pushing himself back up while the rival captain growls like a rabid dog. Li Han nonchalantly thumbs the blood from his lip, stating he will let that cheap shot slide, purely because he is not trying to catch a disciplinary hearing over some pointless brawling. Turning his back on the seething leader, Li Han strolls off. But just as he passes Kuro, he hits the brakes, leaning in to drop a quiet promise that he will be waiting. From the sidelines, a heckler scoffs that nobody in their right mind would backstab their current crew for a wannabe boss with 0 track record. Another guy chimes in brutally, betting that Li Han's so-called squad is doomed to flop before it even launches. Kuro stays totally mute, anxiety written all over his face. Meanwhile, Li Han paces down an empty corridor, his mind racing as he realizes he has already pitched his idea to his entire shortlist. Desperation creeps in. He racks his brain for a backup plan, terrified that this whole solo squad dream is about to crash and burn. Totally zoned out, he literally collides with someone rocking a creepy skull mask. He mumbles a quick apology, but the stranger completely ghosts him, vanishing down the hall with insane speed that leaves Lee Han shook. He glances back, questioning if customizing the academy uniform like a total edgelord is even allowed. Out of nowhere, his wrist comm starts going off like an alarm. He checks the glowing notification. It is an emergency page demanding all squad captains rally at the backup medical bay. Cutting to the courtyard outside the facility, a bunch of elite captains are standing in perfect formation. Sasha Grace takes center stage, broadcasting that 6 rookies just leveled up and are practically begging to be drafted. Dropping a massive perk, the newest captain gets VIP drafting rights. Sasha then locks eyes with Lee Han, ordering him to the front of the pack. Adrenaline spikes. This is his golden ticket to finally lock down at least one teammate. Stepping up, he confidently drops his title as the official head of Squad 13, keeping it real by admitting his roster is practically a ghost town and extending an open invitation to absolutely anyone. The surrounding rookies physically cringe, throwing him looks of pure disgust. They start openly mocking him, pointing out that being short on members is just code for being a total loner. But breaking the tension, Jose shoots his hand into the air, volunteering as tribute. The crowd gasps, totally shook, screaming Jose's name in disbelief. Fast forward to later that night in the dorms, the vibe is a little bittersweet. Jose sighs, telling Lee Han it is a huge bummer they could not score at least one extra recruit. But Lee Han plays it cool, admitting it is basically impossible to hype up a brand new zero-clout faction. He gives Jose a genuine nod of respect, thanking him for taking a massive gamble on his leadership. Jose just smiles, confessing he has been dying to team up for ages. He insists that if those clueless rookies actually knew Lee Han's insane stats, they would have been begging for a spot. Cracking his knuckles and stretching out, Jose declares they will hit the recruiting grind hard again tomorrow, before finally dipping out to crash in his own room. Right as Jose reaches for the handle, a heavy knock echoes through the room. The door swings open, revealing Kuro standing like a ghost in the frame. Lee Han's jaw drops as he calls out his name. He immediately demands to know who messed up his face, noticing Kuro nervously rubbing the back of his neck, his skin plastered in fresh bandages. Looking away, Kuro mutters that he finally dropped the bomb on Kaido about ditching Squad 7 forever, flexing a little as he notes that when push came to shove, that psycho captain totally chickened out on his death threat. Hype floods Lee Han's face as he calls it an absolute win, joking that Kuro must have swapped personalities, but Kuro brushes off the compliment like it is no big deal. Meanwhile, Jose is literally hyping them up, celebrating that the original island trio is officially reunited, and predicting they are about to become an unstoppable force. Out of nowhere, a mysterious fourth voice cuts through the hype sarcastically, noting that they look like they are throwing a party and asking if they have room for a +1. Striding right up to Lee Han, the guy smirks, pointing out that the whole academy treats Lee Han like absolute garbage right now, which makes Squad 13 the most thrilling place to be. Jose leans in, whispering a quick reminder that this wildcard used to wreck kids in Class B. And Lee Han nods immediately, knowing they desperately need his raw firepower on the roster. Throwing up a slick hand sign, the new kid formally introduces himself as Nuth Mayor. He casually mentions he is pumped to carry Squad 13, raising an eyebrow to ask if this ragtag group finally meets the minimum player count to be legit. Lee Han locks it in with a yes, but instantly kills the vibe with a grim reality check. They are officially public enemy number 1, and a single mistake means the academy will crush their squad into dust. Knowing full well the massive fallout, Kuro and Knuth Meyer just shrug it off, declaring they were totally ready for this. The newly minted Squad 13 huddles up the insane pressure, practically suffocating them. Flashing a dead serious glare, Lee Han dips out, tossing a quick catch you tomorrow over his shoulder. The very next day, a slick dude steps up to welcome the squad, dropping his name Grossman, the absolute top dog instructing the second-year rookies. Grossman immediately clocks their roster, locking eyes with their leader Lee Han, before scoping out Jose Batista and Knuth Meyer. Panning over to Kuro, he spots his busted-up face and asks what went down. Kuro pulls the classic tripped down the stairs excuse. Flashing a knowing smirk, Grossman just tells him to watch his step. Getting down to business, he drops the timeline starting right now. They have exactly 3 weeks of prep before the brutal trials begin. Once the clock runs out, they will be thrown right into completely randomized high-stakes brawls. Reading between the lines, Lee Han instantly catches Grossman's hidden warning. Do not slack off, or you are dead meat. Their first major hurdle, an intense weapon survival clash against Squad 9, the absolute undisputed sharpshooters of the academy. Cut to the dense forest arena, where Knuth Meyer stupidly rips off his tactical helmet, whining about the heat, and claiming they just need to dodge bullets. Lee Han instantly smacks him upside the head, roasting him for basically begging to get sniped. He violently yanks Knuth by the collar, ordering him to keep the gear strapped tight, no matter what goes down. Radiating pure alpha energy, Lee Han swears on his life that nobody in his crew is dying today, hyping up their master plan, Operation Mobile Bunker, and yeah, he warns them not to chuckle at the goofy name. The squad totally side-eyes the title, but before they can roast him, a massive siren shreds the silence. officially kicking off the bloody survival showdown between Squad 9 and Squad 13. The rival team locks and loads with their arrogant leader, bragging about how they will wipe the floor with these losers in record time. But Lee Han just smirks, rallying his squad to unleash their absolute peak potential. Meanwhile, a massive hyped-up crowd glues their eyes to the live feed, screaming for Squad 9 to publicly execute the traitors. Dimitri chills on the sidelines, chuckling at the wild mob mentality. Del Simon is lurking, too completely obsessed with figuring out what insane trick Lee Han has up his sleeve, knowing full well a straight-up gunfight would be actual suicide. Deep in the woods, Squad 9 pushes forward, totally weirded out by the absolute ghost town ahead of them. It looked like Squad 13 just camped at the spawn point. One cocky sniper pushes up to scout, only to realize the targets are zooming way too fast to track. Tapping his comms, Knuthmeyer patches through, warning that the hit squad is just 660 feet out, and he is making his move. A bird's eye view flashes on screen, exposing both squads' tactical setups. A heavily armed Squad 9 goon hugs a massive oak tree, sweating as he realizes the prey is actually hunting him down. Cut back to Jose, and Kuro gasping for air, with Jose stressing about how these tryhards are literally giving them zero breathing room. They pulled off their crazy setup, but their stamina bars are completely flashing red right now. Peeking from a safe distance, Lee Han mutters that Knuth definitely read the room and is likely pulling a crazy stunt, instead of falling back to base. Suddenly, a deafening crack rips through the trees. A sniper bullet absolutely shreds through Knuthmeyer's leg mid-sprint. He grunts in pure agony but refuses to fold. Pointing his gun wildly, he screams out, playing the ultimate decoy to lure the kill squad away as he drags his bleeding body. Spinning around to face his hunters, he totally unloads his clip. He is going down, but he is dead set on dragging at least one enemy straight to hell with him. But the elite marksmen just weave through the spray and pray, mocking his trash aim. The brutal recoil finally knocks a battered Knuth flat into the dirt. They ruthlessly pepper him with more rounds while he is down. Yet somehow this absolute tank forces himself up, deciding his only mission now is stalling for his boys. The sniper squad is super confused. Why did this dude push alone, and why run a single lookout for a four-man team? One enemy gets cocky and volunteers to push the front line, demanding some heavy covering fire from his crew. The remaining three lock in, aiming down their sights to back him up. Miles away, Lee Han barks the command to roll out, confirming Knuth bought them the exact window they needed. Jose grimaces, knowing their boy is probably shredded by now. And Lee Han nods, respecting Knuth's raw sacrifice to tank the aggro instead of retreating to safety. Jose hypes up their fallen bro, explaining his distraction let them recharge their drained mana after they literally uprooted a giant tree with their powers. They had perfectly synced their crazy skills to chop that massive timber. Now, with ice in his veins, Lee Han declares, it is time to unleash pure chaos. Suddenly, this colossal wooden log starts levitating right in front of them. The livestream audience loses their minds, watching Squad 13 march forward behind a flying tree, totally freaking out over this makeshift juggernaut shield. Dimitri and Del Simon watch the madness unfold, with Dimitri pointing out that this broken metastrat was only remotely possible thanks to Kuro's heavy lifting. Cut back to Knuth, who is still desperately dumping mags to stall the enemy. Click, click. His gun runs totally dry just as a hitman flanks his blind spot. The smirking rival asks if he seriously thought he could solo this, laughing at his absolutely pathetic decoy play. Watching the feed, Dimitri coldly notes that Squad 13 is already down a man, questioning if a flying chunk of wood is really enough to clinch the win. But Del Simon sharply cuts in, exposing a fatal flaw in the sniper team's build, a blind spot Lee Han totally predicted. Back in the trenches, Squad 9 desperately dumps bullets into the advancing wood, panicking as the invincible barricade just keeps bulldozing closer. Their sweaty leader suddenly has a horrifying realization by drafting an all-marksman roster. He did not bring a single telekinetic user to push back heavy objects. He completely freezes, realizing Lee Han utterly hard-read their lineup's massive weakness, and just keeps steamrolling forward while laying down brutal suppressing fire. Out of nowhere, one of the elite snipers gets completely tagged, leaving their leader. Take cover, he yells, ordering his crew to buy some precious time until the enemy psychic completely burns out. Lee Han admits this strategy is sketchy at best, but using the massive timber as a meat shield is their only ticket to closing the gap. Cue Jose flexing his pyrokinesis, he torches the heavy brush right in front of them, throwing up an absolute wall of roaring fire and thick ash. Squad 9 completely panics as the toxic smog swallows them whole. The arena goes absolutely feral over this big brain move, mind blown by the pyro skills trapping the rival crew. Over the comms, Jose confirms the smokescreen is locked in tight, and Lee Han gives the brutal green light to snipe any runners. Inside the haze, two enemy fighters are stumbling around completely blind. Bam! One catches a hit and is instantly wiped from the board. Squad 9's shot caller suddenly realizes half his squad just vanished, and desperately barks at his final guy to chill out. But out of nowhere, the last two catch a brutal strike. Plot twist, our boys are rocking thermal optics. piercing right through the thickest smoke. Lee Han lines up the perfect headshot and pulls the trigger. The speakers blast Squad 13's epic victory, sending the bleachers into absolute chaos over Lee Han's god-tier aim and Kuro's flawless playbook. Dimitri is hyping them up from the stands, while Del Simon just silently glares at the wreckage. Down in the dirt, Squad 13 is losing their minds over surviving the mission. Meanwhile, some shady figure is streaming the whole bloodbath. Grossman zooms in on the feed, heavily breathing out Lee Han's name. Cut to the squad, clinking glasses for a massive celebration toast. One guy is absolutely buzzing that they scored top-tier stakes as a winner's bounty. Lee Han grins, soaking in the payoff, while Jose ruthlessly roasts Canute for literally catching a bullet. Canute fires back that Jose wouldn't survive a single scratch. Mid-feast, the vibes are immaculate, until Jose singles out Lee Han, demanding a speech from the MVP who carried them. Lee Han stays humble, thanking the crew and admitting their play was extremely reckless, but they secured the bag because everyone locked in. The squad hangs on to his every word, though Kuro interrupts to say it wasn't a gamble at all. It was straight-up genius. Lee Han brushes it off as pure luck, dropping the reality check that Squad 9 relied way too much on raw power, making them insanely predictable against top-tier snipers. Canute glazes Lee Han's galaxy brain reads, swearing he totally bet on the right horse. Right on cue, Canute hunches over groaning, prompting Jose to tell him to go rest up and heal. But the dude refuses to tap out, claiming he would literally pass away before skipping this feast. Pure chaotic laughter spills out of their dorm, echoing deep into the night. But switch to the villain's lair. Grossman is lurking at his monitors, totally unhinged. He never saw this coming. He handpicked Squad 9 to crush them, and now he realizes he has to permanently nerf these rookies before their egos get too massive. Swiping through classified profiles, Grossman eyes Squad 7 for the next bloodbath. He knows 7 is bloodthirsty enough to rip 13 apart, but what if Lee Han pulls another miracle out of his hat? A wicked smirk crosses his face. He just has to rig the game so hard that losing is mathematically impossible. Later, Lee Han is staring at the ceiling, absolutely wired. He bolts upright, feeling that same suffocating dread from when he almost got kicked out of the academy, but immediately checks himself. He is rolling with absolute monsters now. Eyes locked in, he promises they are going to sweep, even if they drop the Grim Reaper on them. The loudspeakers crackle with the next insane matchup, Squad 1, stepping up to body Squad 13. In a savage captain elimination brawl. Huddled up, Squad 1's boss looks at his killers and makes sure the playbook is memorized. He warns them not to sleep on Kuro and Jose, literally the most broken psychics in the entire sophomore class. The captain orders his fastest striker to hard target, those two keeping their minds constantly scrambling, and the guy just nods coldly. He tightens his combat band, flexing that he couldn't care less about the other scrubs on the team. They are all getting cooked anyway. His massive tank of a teammate roars that they are turning their leader into the undisputed king of the arc. Up in the nosebleeds, Dimitri whispers to Del Simon that Lee Han must have totally angered the admins to draw Squad 1 this early. The rules of engagement are dead simple: snatch the captain's headband, win the game. But this dude is a walking fortress. Rocking a hyper-aggressive frontline build, the captain spearheads the charge, while his squad jams all sniper support to slowly choke out the enemy. Dimitri leans over, grabbing popcorn to see Lee Han's next big brain play, but Del Simon sharply tells him to zip it and pay attention. Squad 1 hits the clearing and completely freezes. Why on earth is Kuro wearing the captain's band? The frontline totally panics, realizing Lee Han is completely ghosting them. Through the earpiece, a calm voice tells Kuro to breathe, and the psychic nods. Jose and Canute step up, forming an absolute meat shield to keep their decoy captain breathing. Squad 1's boss snaps out of it and screams to push the line, yelling that Lee Han's stealth games won't save them. As the heavy hitters rush in, Lee Han materializes out of thin air. He parkours straight up into the canopy breaking formation, and dragging all the enemy aggro with him. Down in the mud, the remaining trio of Squad 13 braces for the brutal impact. The gap closes in a vicious hand-to-hand clash. Jose blasts a guy with his psychic voltage, but the bruiser just laughs, telling him he is way out of his league. The enemy slips past the attack, closing the gap in a heartbeat. Across the battlefield, some random grunt completely shatters Canute's weapon into pieces. Throwing a quick hand sign to Kuro, Lee Han lets him know it is go time. Without hesitation, Lee Han launches himself right off a massive drop, brushing off the danger because they ran this exact drill 100 times. Down below, Squad 1's captain tightens his grip, gearing up for a brutal counterstrike. Out of nowhere, Jose and Canute tackle the captain, pinning him straight to the dirt. Their leader screams for them to hold the line, hyping up the flawless execution of their trap. Lee Han practically skydives toward Kuro, while enemy backup swarms in. Two grunts rush, Kuro weapons drawn, and already bragging about an easy win. But Kuro just throws his hands up, sparking his psychic powers. The charging soldier freezes mid-dash, totally clueless as to why Kuro is staring at the sky. Boom! A A massive shockwave craters the earth right behind them. The two enemies whip their heads around, terrified by the explosive crash. Kuro instantly exploits the shock, whipping up a massive smokescreen to cover his tracks. The enemy goons start freaking out in the haze while Kuro pants, fighting through sheer exhaustion. The captain gets slammed brutally into the dirt, totally out of commission, leaving Jose and Knuth gasping for air. Crouching over the wrecked captain, Kuro locks eyes with the stunned remnants of Squad 1. From the settling dust, Lee-han steps up, flexing the enemy headband, casually declaring a checkmate. The loudspeakers blare Squad 13 as the undisputed winners, sucking all the sound right out of the stadium. A split second later, the crowd realizes this dude just leaped from a height taller than a 5-story building, and the entire arena explodes into pure hype. Dimitri smirks, pointing out how these same people wanted Lee-han dead 10 minutes ago, but he totally gets the hype. The kid has been dropping god-tier tactics back to back. Whispers echo through the stands about who this absolute genius is, and why his old boss at Squad 7 benched a walking cheat code. Watching from the sidelines, the old Squad 7 boss grips his fist until his knuckles turn white, choking on the bitter reality that he completely wasted a prodigy. Rewind 24 hours before the clash, with Squad 1 Lee-han gets launched straight into the stratosphere for a crazy training drill. Sweating bullets, Kuro extends his hands to telekinetically break his falling teammate, but completely whiffs it, letting the boy crash hard into the dirt. Despite the faceplant, Kuro swears they will nail this in the actual fight, while Lee-han brushes off the pain to hype up his boy's insane potential. Kuro just shakes his head at the absolute madness of Lee-han, pointing out that only a psycho would risk a shattered face in practice over straight-up dying in combat. Fast forward to match day, Lee-han breaks down the science. Levitating, breathing humans is a nightmare. Otherwise, every psychic on Earth would be flying around like Superman. He pitches his suicidal playbook. He takes a massive nosedive, and Kuro just needs to tap the brakes on gravity right before impact. Snapping back to the present, Kuro looks like a kicked puppy, spamming apologies for snapping his teammate's arm like a twig during the landing. Rocking a fresh cast, Lee-han just waves off the guilt trip, telling Kuro he pulled off a miracle under impossible pressure. Chowing down in the cafeteria, Knuthmeyer jumps in, telling Kuro to drop the guilt without his gravity powers. They never would have dropped that monster. Stuffing his face, Jose casually wonders if the bigwigs will give them a bye week while their leader's bones knit back together. Out of nowhere, everyone's smart devices chime with a brutal alert. Their next deathmatch drops in exactly 48 hours. Ignoring the pain, Lee-han stands up, his eyes locked on a single goal. He marches straight up to a massive set of double doors. Behind that heavy wood sits the notoriously strict Instructor Grossman. The heavy doors swing open and Grossman smirks about the surprise visit. But the plot twists. The guy stepping into the office is actually Kato Suki. Pacing the hallway outside, Jose loses his mind over the rigged schedule, spitting out that fighting Squad 7 with a crippled leader is just a glorified execution. He keeps venting his frustrations, calling the whole system garbage, and begging the team to stage a massive protest. Behind closed doors, Grossman straight up tells Kato the match is rigged for Squad 7 to catch an easy win, raising an eyebrow to ask if he is getting cold feet. Then, the instructor casually brushes it off, claiming Kato's squad would crush them regardless, and demands the captain bring home a flawless victory. Stepping back out, Kato grinds his teeth, realizing that Boomer totally ignored his actual concerns. He storms down the dimly lit corridor. Cutting through the hallway panic, Lee-han tells his squad to stop whining because the system does not care about their feelings. They just need to secure the bag and win. He openly admits his playbook is currently blank, but drops a promise that he will cook up a mastermind survival guide before the clock runs out. Watching from the shadows, Kato finds this gritty optimism extremely entertaining. He swaggers over to Lee-han, praying the kid is not just blowing hot air. Eyeing the heavy cast, Kato sarcastically asks if homeboy can even throw a punch. Lee-han keeps it cool, admitting the dead weight sucks right now, but promises his one good arm is more than enough to bury Squad 7. Kato instantly invades his personal space, growling that Lee-han is about to get publicly clowned into the dirt if he dares to hold back. Shoving a finger right into the kid's chest, Kato makes a chilling vow to literally slaughter both him and Kuro in the arena. Lee-han does not even blink, shooting back a lethal glare and daring the guy to write checks his fists cannot cash. Kato just spins on his heels, barking at them to prepare for a bloodbath. Jose spits on the ground, calling Kato a massive toxic hater. Lee-han does not sugarcoat how brutal this fight will be, but pivots, ordering the crew straight to the training room. Marching straight into the facility, Lee-han flexes his psychic chops by lifting an air bit. The heavy metal sphere hums as it hovers perfectly at eye level. He breaks down his current stats at full health. Juggling two of these bad boys is his absolute ceiling, but right now holding just one feels like lifting a truck. Scanning the room, he watches his boys putting in the sweat. Jose looks like he is about to blow a gasket, trying to juggle two floating spheres while spamming his fire abilities. Deep in thought, Lee-han realizes Kuro might be their only hard carry, but totally dreads the idea of dumping that massive burden onto one kid's shoulders. The psychological pressure is heavily weighing him down. He knows Squad 7 is perfectly stacked, and with Kaito locking down their teamwork, They are an absolute powerhouse. Facing facts, he realizes a head-to-head clash is pure suicide. That is when Jose pulls him aside with some bad news, casually sparking up his combustion powers to prove a point. Without anything to actually burn in the atmosphere, his flames are basically just a party trick. Plus, hitting targets zipping around at top speed. Yeah, near impossible. Lee Han quietly processes his teammates' grim breakdown of the situation. Across the way, some arrogant punk from the rival crew starts trash-talking their skills, assuring Kaito this is a free win, and the leader nods in agreement. The grim reality sets in, 0 win conditions for them, 0 ways for the enemy to choke. Fast forward to game day. The peanut gallery is already gossiping about Squad 13's doom. Knowing Lee Han is banged up and a total rookie in the sky, Dimitri straight up declares, this is an execution, calling Instructor Grossman an absolute savage. Del Simon is chilling nearby before Dimitri suddenly yanks him close, whispering that the setup is foul and demanding he stick close. But Del drops some knowledge. Grossman actually uses hardcore data to rig matchups, forcing everyone into a brutal 50-50 win rate. Still looking over at Lee Han, he admits, pulling off a victory today is going to be a nightmare. Down in the arena, Squad 7 is already locked into a flawless formation. Across the zone, Squad 13 scrambles into their starting spots. Kaito cold-bloodedly orders his crew to wipe them off the map, while his hype man chimes in, hyping up a brutal lesson for traitors. Meanwhile, Lee Han checks in on Jose's vibe, and the pyro grins, swearing he is hyped and ready to turn the arena to ash. Lee Han taps him to carry the squad, naming him the absolute MVP of their insane game plan. The buzzer sounds and the intercom blares, commanding everyone to launch their airbits. Squad 7 smoothly deploys 6 hover devices, but jaws drop when Squad 13 unleashes an absolute swarm of tech into the sky. Kaito squints, comparing his team's measly 6 drones to the chaotic cloud above their rivals. The math hits him like a truck. Those guys just launched 16 airbits. His lackey panics, screaming that there is no shot. Kuro is controlling 10 devices solo, begging for a counterplay. Smirking at Kato's short-circuiting brain, Lee Han sarcastically offers to clear up the confusion. In a flash, all 16 airbits hover menacingly over Squad 13's airspace. 2 of Kaito's grunts are openly sweating, questioning reality, but Kaito barks at them to stop shaking, demanding they stick to the script and systematically shred the enemy drones, without breaking a sweat. Suddenly, Squad 13 surges forward on their rides. Lee Han reveals the insane grind behind this. They spammed telekinesis training until they bled, and despite his own garbage-tier psychic stats, he figured out how to hyper-focus his energy like a laser. Tapping into that cheat code, he is not just lazily floating objects anymore. He is turning them into high-velocity projectiles. Boom! A single airbit rockets forward like a bullet, forcing Squad 7 to frantically dive out of the way. Kaito is stunned by the sheer velocity, totally mind-blown by this chaotic drone swarm tactic. Yet he stubbornly insists that as long as the attacks are not homing in on him, his reflexes will keep him alive. Cut back to training, Jose practically whining about his flames being dead weight, without proper fuel in the sky. Back in the present, Jose casually unleashes a fiery inferno. That is when Lee Han drops the mic. Exposing his galaxy brain strat, he brought his own fuel for the dogfight. The twisted part. The fuel is the ridiculously expensive airbit itself. Kamikaze style, the drone detonates dead center in Squad 7's formation. A massive fireball engulfs the combat zone. Up in the bleachers, Dimitri and Del Simon completely lose their minds. The crowd goes absolutely feral over the fireworks, chanting for them to nuke every single drone. Lee Han and Jose are just spamming their explosive combo, now lighting up the arena like a summer blockbuster. Panic-stricken Kaito screams at his crew to put up shields, but they are too paralyzed by the shrapnel and heat. Out of nowhere, Instructor Grossman sprints onto the field, roaring at them to cut the match right now. Amidst the smoke, Kaito furiously screams Lee Han's name. Suddenly, we flash forward to a tense moment, Grossman glaring holes into Lee Han for 10, agonizing, minutes inside his office. The veteran finally shatters the silence, admitting this is a super weird icebreaker, before deadpanning a question. Does he have any clue what those airbits actually cost? The kid shrugs, admitting they are pricey. Grossman bluntly states that, without ARC's funding, that stunt would have plunged him into lifelong debt. Unfazed, Lee Han fires back, asking if this office visit was actually about his tactical genius. Grossman waves a hand, sighing that while turning luxury gear into bombs is technically legal, it is a massive PR nightmare. He strongly advises against blowing up school property and demands a heads up next time, which the kid casually accepts. But Lee Han pushes his luck, asking for one last word, and the instructor gives him the floor. He drops some hard logic. If they were out there battling actual dragons, nobody would care about property damage, because survival is the only metric that matters. Leaning in, Lee Han questions if ruthless survival isn't the whole point of this academy. Shockingly, Grossman busts out laughing, noting the kid sounds dangerously like an old acquaintance. Hyped by the reckless ambition, the veteran praises his mindset and admits he is pumped for his next arena brawls. With a flick of his wrist, he dismisses the rebel, and the squad leader tosses a crisp salute. Snapping back to the smoky war zone, Kaido white-knuckles his fists and dive bombs straight for Lee Han's throat. Boom! A mid-air blast rocks him to the core. In a split second, it clicks. This psycho is dragging them both down in a suicidal freefall. Waiting in the dirt, Kaito aims a finger at the wrecked losers. He sneers, tossing out that zero respect comes from pulling a cheap, cowardly stunt like that. Lee Han brushes it off, saying history can be the judge. He claps back, asking if Kaito really stood around just to hate, which the guy quickly denies. Walking off, Kaito swears he will be the one to absolutely wreck him, throwing down a hard warning: do not dare lose to anyone else before their showdown. The scene fades as a bruised sun dips behind the dorms. Cut to the squad quarters where the crew throws a massive feast for their returning captain. Rocking a sling on his busted arm, Lee Han steps into the hype. The boys break down their latest W, with Kuro backing the referee decision and Knuth chiming in. Knuth admits the dub was entirely legal, but definitely left a weird taste in their mouths. Catching a vibe, Kuro presses Jose on why he looks so tense. Jose drops the facts every single time they throw a party disaster strikes. Flashing a wicked smirk, he taps his smartwatch. Right on cue, the curse strikes again. A synchronized beep echoes through the room as everyone stares down at their wrists, completely stunned. Boom. Capture the Flag versus Squad 5 drops in exactly 7 days. Meanwhile, the camera cuts to Dimitri, practically breaking the bench press, hyping himself up to dominate the absolute heavyweights of this game mode. Back with the crew, Lee Han sighs, claiming this relentless grind has Instructor Grossman written all over it. It is literally just non-stop chaos. Jump forward, and we see Dimitri wrapping up a brutal street sprint, totally hyped on his own grind. Sweating bullets, he complains about the suffocating heat, desperate to speedrun his way back to a cold shower. But mid-stride, Dimitri finds his path blocked. A shadowy cadet rocking long hair ghosts right past his shoulder. Dimitri spins around, barking at the guy to freeze. He drops a sarcastic former squad boss title, instantly correcting the shade, since Dimitri is the one running the show now. Without a word, the long-haired dude lunges and collars him. He hisses, demanding to know if hitting level 3 means he is practically invisible now. Unfazed, Dimitri flexes hard about how Squad 5 has been absolutely crushing it, ever since he snatched the crown. The washed-up ex-leader just growls, telling Dimitri to vanish before he catches a body. Dimitri just smirks, asking what his damage is. He casually offers to beat the answers out of him right there in the street. Smash. Cut to a dark forest. Lee Han drops into a combat stance, totally on edge. He stares down the nightmare in front of him, wondering what kind of monster he is facing. A massive, cloaked absolute unit blitzes toward him like a freight train. The hood slips, flashing a bone-chilling skull mask. Then, poof. The freak teleports, glitching back into reality before unleashing a hyperspeed beatdown. Lee Han eats dirt, completely folded and defeated. Rewind 6 days, we catch a shocked Lee Han standing in Grossman's dimly lit office. He demands to know if the insane rumors are legit. The stone-faced instructor nods, but keeps the juicy details locked in the vault for now. We get a flash of that bitter ex-leader towering over a pulverized body. Grossman drops the bomb. Dimitri got brutally hospitalized, pulling him entirely out of the upcoming war, yet the match is locked in. Lee Han's mind races, realizing that a Dimitri-less Squad 5 is basically free elo. But the instructor cuts off his thoughts, stating there is a completely different reason he got summoned. Grossman slides a thick stack of paperwork across the desk. It is a roster shakeup offering fresh blood for Squad 13. The veteran praises Lee Han's genius-level shot calling with his current crew, making the kids silently flex that he totally saw this curveball coming. The files highlight a bunch of sweaty level 2 rookies who are locked and loaded for immediate deployment. Grossman advises him to chew on the decision, but Lee Han instantly signs the dotted line, dropping the harsh truth that beggars cannot be choosers. Cut to the courtyard where Lee Han sizes up the 4 fresh faces of Squad 13. He runs down the roll call: Domingo, Kasim, Andy, and pulling up the rear, Jong Jijo. The boss lays down the law boot camp starts tomorrow. He plans to dissect their skills before handing out roles, daring anyone to step up with complaints. Jiho immediately runs his mouth, trying to buddy up to Captain Lee Han. He begs for some VIP treatment, playing the shared Korean heritage card. Lee Han shuts that noise down instantly, stating your passport means 0 inside the arc. You either pop off with pure skill, or you are out, checking Jijo's ego entirely. As the squad scatters, the rejected rookie violently mutters under his breath about the captain being a total buzzkill. He whips around, dropping a spicy insult in his native tongue. Andy leans over, whispering to Kasim for a translation, and Kasim smirks, revealing it is a hardcore Korean swear he picked up from binging dramas. Game day arrives. The massive arena dome clamps shut, plunging the battlefield into a pitch-black night mode for their Capture the Flag bloodbath. The Squad 13 boys instantly start raging about the system, plotting to handicap them. Lee Han kills the panic, reminding his squad that the enemy is stumbling in the exact same darkness, telling them to chill until their night vision kicks in. He barks out the master plan. Knuth's squad takes point. Jose runs back up while Li-han, Jijo, and Kuro pull a sneaky side flank. He hypes them up, claiming a headless squad 5 should be a walk in the park, but aggressively warns them not to get cocky and throw. Flashback 10 minutes, the vanguard and backup units slide into their tactical spots. Li-han hits the comms, giving his flank squad the green light to push. Jump to 5 minutes ago, Knuth's wrecking crew rolls up on a helpless squad 5 straggler. After completely sweeping the trash, one guy wonders if that was the entire roster, until someone spots the prize. Knuth Meyer locks his sights on a solitary shadow guarding the flag. The cloaked phantom just sits there chilling right next to the objective. As he slowly rises to meet them, the squad realizes this psycho literally just watched his whole team get wiped. While his squad is busy eating dirt, this absolute menace of a solo player blitzes the rest of the crew all at once. Out of nowhere, someone snatches Li-han from the blind spot, but Kuro violently shoves him clear, screaming at him to watch his six. Taking the full brunt of the strike, Kuro gets launched across the arena like a rag doll, while our boy can only watch in shock. The dude is straight up teleporting. Swallowing his panic, Li-han instantly pivots and launches his own fierce counteroffensive. But this masked freak just glides back effortlessly, dodging the blow. Jung Jijo is losing his mind, screaming, asking how they are supposed to even land a scratch on this guy. He recklessly charges in with a massive swing, but the enemy just vaults right over him. Whiffing total air, Jijo grunts in pure frustration, right before a flawless punishing roundhouse kick connects with his gut. With Jijo now folded on the floor, the masked terror locks onto his next target. Up in the bleachers, the cadets are practically losing it trying to figure out who this monster is. Someone drops the name Silence. Instantly terrified, whispers ripple through the entire crowd like wildfire. Hearing that drops Del Simon's jaw to the floor. He breaks it down after some messed up incident. Silence literally lost his vocal cords. But in exchange, his combat stats skyrocketed to insane heights, making him a certified level 3. The audience starts screaming that letting a level 3 compete is totally rigged, as the silent powerhouse casually taps a glowing device strapped to his wrist. Slowly, he turns around to face his final prey. Li-han stares death in the face, completely ignoring the hype, and swears he isn't about to take an L today. Tossing out the nickname Skull Mask, he channels every ounce of his aura straight into the razor edge of his blade. The tension is suffocating as they lock eyes. Up top, Del Simon is sweating bullets, knowing Silence is in an entirely different galaxy of power compared to these rookies. He completely writes off any chance of victory, stressing over how Li-han plans to survive this slaughter. Our protagonist knows one missed parry means game over, but he is way too stubborn to fold without a fight. His brain goes into overdrive, clocking the guy's warp range at exactly 15 meters per jump, and since the endgame is securing the flag, not necessarily catching a body, he just needs a split-second window to stun him, and he knows exactly how to force it. The cheat code is timing the disruption, right as the warp triggers. He spots a faint visual glitch, a tiny blur right before the jump happens. Tracking the exact landing coordinates, he starts the countdown in his head. 1, 2. On 3, he unleashes a savage strike right where Silence is supposed to spawn. The masked freak flinches, genuinely rattled by the hard read. Parrying the lethal follow-up with his own power, Li-han lunges desperately past his enemy fingers, extending toward the target flag. Denied. A steel grip clamps around his throat, choking him out as the masked executioner readies a devastating fatal blow. Out of absolute nowhere, a high-speed projectile snipes the monster dead in the dome. A flawless bullseye. The brutal kinetic force cracks his mask wide open, forcing him to stumble back in a rare moment of dizzying confusion. As the skull plating shatters completely, Li-han is already standing tall, smirking that bouncing back in just 3 seconds is wild, but it was all the time he needed to snatch the prize. He spins around holding the flag high and serves Skull Mask a massive reality check. The arena absolutely explodes. Nobody can process a rookie dropping a level 3. Del Simon grinds his teeth in disbelief. Cut to a totally different vibe elsewhere. Kuro is chilling, clicking his tongue at a stray cat, with a carved stick in his hand. Tossing it a snack, he mutters how it looks exactly like the furball from his old orphanage. He vents about growing up as a complete outcast, totally useless, and judged for his weird looks. But things have changed. He finally found his hidden talent, and more importantly, he has got a real squad now. The wholesome moment gets ruined when Jijo rolls up demanding to know what he is doing. The guy smoothly pivots, claiming they need to talk business since they have the data themselves. Stepping uncomfortably close, Jijo points out their team is missing a vice captain. Naturally, he nominates himself and tries to hustle Kuro into backing his play. Getting irritated by the cat purring against his ankle, the dude straight up punts the poor animal away. Kuro's eyes go completely dark. His voice drops to a deadly whisper as he tells Jijo to step off. The tension spikes in the courtyard right before Kuro violently unleashes his aura. Jijo watches sweating buckets as a massive metal dumpster starts vibrating uncontrollably before being flattened like a soda can by sheer invisible pressure. A floating boulder gets instantly atomized, sending shrapnel whistling past Jiho's terrified face. Kuro looks him dead in the eye, promising murder if he ever pulls a stunt like that again. Shaking like a leaf, the wannabe captain nods furiously. Kuro simply bolts, leaving the guy drained and completely traumatized on the concrete. Unbothered, the kicked kitty lands on its feet and casually struts past a hospital ward, right where Lee Han is checking up on Dimitri. Covered in fresh bandages, Dimitri asks why his boy dropped by, knowing damn well this is not a social call. Lee Han leans in all ears. The wounded fighter admits he was just guessing since the Ark heavily censors intel, but seeing him here connects all the dots. Our main character cuts to the chase, asking if a level 3 was responsible for putting him in a hospital bed. Dimitri nods, revealing the attacker was his old squad captain, and confesses that those top-tier monsters are playing a completely different game. Gripping the sheets in pure frustration, he corrects his own statement, saying it is not even a gap in power anymore. He drops the bitter truth he got completely wiped out before he could even flex a muscle. He drops a wild detail: the guy who jumped him was acting completely unhinged, like he had totally lost his mind. Lee Han connects the dots, guessing this sudden psycho behavior is definitely tied to whatever goes down during level 3 training. When his buddy points out they've already maxed out all their resources for level 2, a massive realization hits Lee Han. He figures out the brutal truth: they're getting thrown into actual deadly combat before even hitting level 3, leaving Dimitri sweating over what nightmares await them at that final stage. Cut to a totally undisclosed location. A hulking figure decked out in high-tech armor steps into a blinding light, revealing an endless glowing corridor. Meanwhile, on the flip side of that hallway, a stray cat is just chilling, strutting down the pavement like it owns the place. Kuro sprints up completely out of breath, yelling that he finally tracked the little guy down. He scoops up the furball, whispering apologies, and trying to bribe it with the promise of more treats. Out of nowhere, his blood runs cold. Still clutching the cat, he freezes as an absolute unit, wearing intimidating heavy-duty armor, blocks his path. Panicking, Kuro demands to know who's hiding under all that metal, but then the guy speaks, and the voice is completely familiar. The massive helmet hisses open to reveal none other than Sergeant Red, who casually drops a greeting to the shocked kid. Red jokes about Kuro's massive glow-up, admitting he barely recognized him before pointing out the kid is wandering dangerously far from his dorms at the Ark facility. Punching the buttons of a nearby vending machine, Red snags 2 drinks, tosses one to Kuro, and tells him to hang tight for their ride. Catching the can, Kuro awkwardly asks if the sergeant is pissed at him, prompting Red to raise an eyebrow and ask why he'd even think that. Red brushes it off, explaining it's honestly no big deal that Kuro stumbled onto the top-secret Psycho Frame project, since level 2 rookies are permanently locked inside the Ark anyway. It clicks for Kuro in the worst way possible. They aren't students, they're military assets trapped in this cage until their bodies physically break down. The sergeant doesn't sugarcoat it, dropping a harsh truth bomb. He adds that anyone who snaps for zero reason is just a straight-up lunatic, making Kuro visibly flinch. Right on cue, an older dude materializes behind them, asking Red for the test results. Red smirks, confirming the psychic sync rates were absolutely off the charts. The old guy nods, suggesting they dial back the insane amount of dragon material in the system, so the user doesn't literally lose their mind trying to pilot it. Red chimes in, hyping up the new generation. Unlike the old-school rookies, these kids can unleash their crazy psychic powers as effortlessly as taking a breath. The newcomer introduces himself as Charlie Smith, the big boss of Team 1. Red hypes him up even more, calling him the absolute legend who engineered the Psycho Frame from scratch. Kuro hits him with a stiff formal greeting. Charlie just smiles, explaining that while the first-gen suits were clunky garbage, this second-gen tech is going to be the most overpowered gear ever created. Red admits he can barely move in the thing, bluntly stating it was tailor-made for Kuro's generation. Pure panic sets in, as Kuro realizes he's the one destined to wear this death trap. Flash forwards flood his mind, visions of himself locked inside that mechanical beast, hopelessly tearing through endless swarms of nightmarish monsters. The sheer horror of fighting real blood-soaked battles in that metal coffin shakes him to his core. A slick black car pulls up and Red gives the terrified kid a casual wave goodbye. Before dipping, the sergeant asks Charlie what's on the chopping block for the prototype mainframe he just test drove. Charlie shrugs, saying they'll have to scrap it and recycle the incredibly rare dragon materials, but Red immediately pushes back, telling him to keep it fully assembled. His reasoning: you never know when some crazy prodigy might step up and actually tame that beast. Fast forward to the Ark's brutal boot camp. Roll call is at 5 in the morning, but Lee Han is always grinding by 4. He's already in the zone, mapping out big brain strategies and brutally evaluating every single strength and weakness of his squad mates. Let's be real, his raw psychic power is total trash right now, and he isn't anywhere close to pulling off that god-tier telekinesis instructor way hyped up. But he's got a secret weapon, a massive flex that literally no one else his age has: flawless, absolute pinpoint precision. While meatheads like Kuro and Simon accidentally disintegrate their pencils using their powers, Lee Han can smoothly write an entire essay using just his mind. He knows his micromanagement skills make him untouchable, but he still needs to grind to make it perfect. His smartwatch chimes, signaling it's time to move out. Lee Han leads his squad in perfect sync through the grueling morning run. With tons of other teams sweating it out on the track, Dimitri slides up right next to him and immediately asks for the lowdown on the crazy dimensional rift Lee Han checked out yesterday. Lee Han just shrugs, calling it super underwhelming, joking that it was super shiny and honestly gave off top-tier date vibes. In reality, that rift is a terrifying scar left behind by the Dragon Army, and the level 2 rookies were forced to split up just to scout it. Grossman drops some lore explaining the rift is literally a gateway crashing Earth into an alien dimension. The running theory, that cosmic collision is exactly what sparked human psychic powers. He tries to chill everyone out, promising it's going to be an awesome field trip with zero danger involved, since the spooky portal has been dead quiet for a whole decade. Not buying it, Lee Han asks if psychics get some freaky spidey sense when they get close. Dimitri nods, confirming it hits you with massive vertigo. He then sprints ahead, hyping up the squad to crush the rest of their workout. The morning sun absolutely drenches the massive ARC facility in golden light. Lee Han gives the final orders. They rally at the helipad at exactly 10 in the morning. He adds, they've got downtime after grabbing grub. Jose laughs, totally vibing with the idea that they're basically going on a high school field trip. With a quick nod, Lee Han dismisses the squad. Just then, Wei Chen strolls up out of nowhere, inviting our boy to grab some breakfast. Lee Han instantly clocks him as John, the big dog of Squad 10. John looks genuinely shocked and honored that Lee Han still remembers him after crushing silence. To be fair, Squad 10 was one of the only elite groups that actually managed to mop the floor with Squad 13. John admits he's been intensely studying Lee Han's elite strategies and really wanted to pick his brain, though his humble buddy immediately denies being anywhere near that level. A military transport bird cuts through the ocean mist. Inside, Major Kang breaks the tense silence, briefing the squad that their drop zone is Sinuiju, ground zero for the dimensional outbreaks. He paints a grim picture of how North Korea basically let the monsters nuke the entire region into an absolute wasteland. The fallout forced South Korea to absorb massive waves of refugees, totally wrecking their economy and society. Hearing this, Kasim leans over and asks if this side of the border is Lee Han's actual home turf. Our boy gives a slow nod, confirming it is where both he and Jijo grew up. The heavy vibe gets cut off when the pilot suddenly clicks, the intercom announcing they have finally hit Sinuiju airspace. The massive rear-loading ramp drops open, exposing the squad to the glowing, twisted sky of the anomaly. Instantly, a suffocating, gravity-crushing aura slams into Andy and the rookies. The sheer terror radiating off the tear in reality makes him feel like he is about to be chewed up and spit out. Every single cadet violently grips their seats, barely managing to breathe through the suffocating energy bleeding out of the zone. Outside, a full fleet of military choppers circles the anomaly in perfect formation. Fast forward to the extraction flight out of the hot zone. The entire squad looks absolutely cooked, groaning about how that nightmare dimension completely drained their souls. Lee Han just zones out silently, watching the ruined landscape blur past the window until he spots another transport riding parallel to theirs, Squad 10. Through the reinforced glass, John flashes him a quick thumbs up. Lee Han actually cracks a rare smile, returning the signal. Then boom, a blinding laser blasts straight through Squad 10. Time slows down as Lee Han watches in pure disbelief, while the aircraft detonates into a massive fireball mid-air. Kato barely has a second to process the blinding flash, before the radio cracks to life, screaming that Squad 10 just got wiped off the map. The trauma hits hard as he flashes back to joking around with Jung Jijo just hours ago. Through the ringing in his ears, a frantic voice starts snapping Lee Han back to reality. It is Grossman. The drill instructor aggressively yanks him by the gear, barking at the entire unit to hook up their chutes and bail, roaring that their bird is going down next. He promises to stay on the comms, to beg headquarters for backup, practically shoving the cadets toward the open ramp. Snapping into survival mode, Lee Han and the crew lock in and dive straight into the freezing wind, free-falling away from the doomed chopper. Grossman screams one last order over the deafening alarms, locking eyes with Lee Han. He tasks the rookie with rallying the surviving cadets once they hit the dirt, officially passing the torch of command if the instructor does not make it. But before Lee Han can even shout a confirmation, another brutal shockwave slams into their fuselage. A second energy beam violently rips through the metal hull. Without hesitating, Grossman tackles Lee Han straight out of the flaming cargo bay. An instant later, the transport bird goes fully critical, exploding into scrap metal and launching the instructor into the abyss, leaving Lee Han completely solo as he plummets toward the dark canopy below. The image of his mentor getting swallowed by hellfire burns into his brain. He violently crashes through the thick foliage, his parachute cords getting insanely tangled in the massive branches. Dangling in midair, the kid forces himself to stop hyperventilating. He blocks out the panic, reminding himself that he is literally a weapon forged for this exact scenario. His ultimate priority is zeroing in on the rest of the squad. Peering through the dense woods, he spots a thick pillar of black smoke and locks it in as his first waypoint, banking on the hope that Jose set up a rally point. Whipping out his tactical blade, He slices through the heavy nylon straps and drops to the dirt. Going full stealth mode, he navigates the creepy forest floor until the unmistakable crunch of leaves echoes from the brush. A shadow lunges at him from the blind spot, and Lee Han instantly pivots, blade drawn and ready to kill, only to realize it is Jung Jijo. Lowering his guard, he asks what the deal is. Jijo breathes heavy, explaining he tracked Lee Han's delayed drop, throwing in the basic survival rule that you always stick to the strongest guy when everything hits the fan. Lee Han immediately orders a rapid sprint to link up with the others, his ice-cold shot calling totally catching Jijo off guard. The duo starts blitzing through the gnarly terrain, slashing marks into the tree trunks so they do not end up walking in circles. Eventually they burst into a clearing, but instead of a campfire, they find the smoldering, twisted metal of a downed bird. Scanning the serial numbers, Lee Han realizes this is Unit 2, meaning the entirety of Squad 8 went down with it. Creeping up to the shredded fuselage, they are met with an absolute massacre. Jijo violently recoils at the grotesque scene, his voice shaking as he mutters how that could have easily been their fate if they had delayed their jump by a single second. The gruesome reality breaks Jijo, and he aggressively dry heaves into the bushes, while Lee Han just stands there completely unfazed. Wiping his mouth, Jiho stares at Lee Han like he is insane, asking if he feels anything at all. The icy protagonist just deadpans that dead bodies stopped scaring him a long time ago, adding that lingering here is a death sentence. His eyes lock onto the shadows ahead with pure killer intent. Suddenly, a massive, terrifying silhouette drops down onto the burning roof of the transport. It is a freakishly large werewolf. Without skipping a beat, Lee Han orders his terrified teammate to scavenge the wreckage for heavy artillery, while he volunteers to pull the aggro and distract the beast. Jijo is practically screaming for them to just run for their lives, but Lee Han shoots him a lethal glare, explaining that exposing their backs to an apex predator is suicide. It is either kill or be killed right here, right now. Triggered by their movement, the monster violently launches itself at the duo. In a blur, its prehensile tail lashes out like a whip, violently snaring Lee Han by the forearm. He roars at Jijo to dodge, and the dude completely launches himself into the dirt just in time. The absolute brute strength of the beast drags Lee Han across the rough terrain, while Jijo desperately scrambles toward the chopper. Every instinct in his body is begging him to abandon his bro and just vanish into the trees. Meanwhile, our savage main character flexes his combat high score, viciously sawing through the monster's tail with his tactical blade until he violently tears himself loose. He screams for Jijo to breach the cargo hold before the enraged beast locks back onto him for round 2. Out of nowhere, a massive flaming branch detaches from the canopy, slamming directly onto the mutant's skull, completely shattering its momentum. Shaking off the hit, the absolute unit rises up and swings a devastating claw attack right at Lee Han, but he fluidly weaves past the strike. The razor-sharp claws obliterate the thick oak tree right behind him instead. Over at the destroyed transport, Jijo completely freezes up in the doorway, heavily debating if he should just let the beast eat his teammate while he makes a run for it. But then disgust washes over his face. Cursing himself for acting like a total scrub, he aggressively shakes off the fear, finally choosing to lock in and stand his ground. He charges straight back into the bloodbath, swearing he'd never ditch his bro. Meanwhile, that massive wolf freak gears up for round 2 against Lee Han. Digging through the wreckage, Jung Jijo snatches up a blaster, only to realize it's completely empty. Across the battlefield, Lee Han watches in horror as the monster's severed tentacle slithers back into a brand new limb. Backed into a dead end, our boy genuinely thinks it's game over. Out of nowhere, a heavy piece of debris rockets through the air, smashing right into the beast's skull. With the monstrosity towering inches from his face, Lee Han screams Gijo's name. Emerging from the shadows, his buddy steps up, gripping the hilt of that useless gun like a baseball bat. "My bad for the holdup," he smirks. The mutant whips its grotesque head around, locking its deadly gaze onto this fresh meat. Bam! A second makeshift missile slams into the wolf, making it stagger backward. Jijo grins, totally banking on Lee Han catching his drift and syncing up perfectly. He yells out that he gambled his life on his buddy's massive brain. Pissed off, the creature pivots and lunges straight for Jijo with lethal speed. Lee Han launches his blade across the dirt, just as the beast closes the gap. The colossal wolf tackles Jijo, hard slamming him brutally into the earth. Trapped under its crushing weight, Jijo can only watch as the monster unhinges its jaws for the kill. Lee Han's flying dagger buries itself deep into the mutant's flesh, stopping the fatal bite inches from his face. Flipping the script, Lee Han suddenly grips a fully restored weapon that literally snapped back together right underneath the beast. Gasping for air, Jijo asks if the nightmare is finally over. Lee Han gives him mad props for the epic assist, but his bruised buddy just groans, complaining that his bones feel like they are literally shattering into pieces. Hauling Jijo to his feet, Lee Han drags him through the eerie woods, mentioning the Ark extraction team is dropping at a different zone. Cut to Jose and the crew chilling by a blazing fire, totally banking on Lee Han spotting their smoke signal. Kosim nods along, flexing about how their boss never misses when it comes to strategy. Chilling nearby, a couple of randoms from a different unit whisper about Squad 13's insane loyalty to their captain. Suddenly, a violent rustle in the brush makes everyone freeze, prompting Jose to yell out for Li Han. Instead, the battered remnants of Squad 9 stumble out from the pitch-black tree line. Their captain looks completely wrecked, asking if Jose's team also took a massive dive and got split up, which Jose shoots down immediately. One of the bleeding survivors chimes in, revealing a brutal ambush wiped out everyone except them. Jose demands to know if they ran into that wolf mutant just as two shadowy silhouettes limp into the firelight. It is Li Han carrying a wrecked Jijo, and Jose instantly screams their names. Dropping an absolute bombshell, Li Han reveals 3 elite hunter-class Elu tribes are treating these savage werewolves like literal attack dogs. Absolute chaos erupts as the unarmed, gearless cadets start freaking out about their impending doom. Cutting through the panic, Li Han spins around and barks a command for everyone to lock in and shut up. He boldly declares he has a master strategy, hyping up the squad to lend him every ounce of their power. Laying it out, he says, extraction is 5 grueling hours away, so they are going to construct a hardcore stronghold to survive the night. Fast forward 2 hours and their makeshift base is totally operational. Li Han smirks, noting that having a squad packed with espers makes insane miracles happen. A nervous rookie asks if blazing all these lights is basically a death wish, but Yvette quickly shuts him down. Werewolves literally have night vision anyway. Del Simon pulls Li Han aside, needing to confront the elephant in the room. He asks the ultimate question, even if backup arrives, what goes down? If that freak lightning strikes the extraction choppers, and if High Command even knows how screwed they truly are. Li Han coldly replies they can stress over that after they actually survive, making Del's stomach drop. This dude totally factored that in already. Del gets a harsh reality check, realizing actual warfare is completely raw compared to academy sparring matches. Without warning, a suffocating aura bleeds out of the pitch-black woods. Every single cadet snaps into battle formation on pure instinct. Someone screams for Kuro, who triggers his absolute max power. A massive glowing energy shield blasts outward, doming the entire base. The squad is completely shook by how insanely overpowered Kuro actually is. Suddenly, a scout shrieks that a mutant is rushing them fast from dead 6 o'clock. Li Han commands the dart snipers to lock onto the target for concentrated fire, storming the front line alongside Knuth. He orders the crew to channel their telekinesis into the spears, shoving them forward with raw mental force. Following his lead, the unit unloads a synchronized barrage of deadly steel. The javelins utterly impale the charging freak. Riding the momentum, Li Han and Del scream the order to push the assault. The duo blitzes forward, slashing the beast, but a rogue tentacle violently whips out and clobbers Del. Sent flying like a ragdoll across the dirt, Del hears Li Han roaring his name. Spitting blood, Del waves them off, telling the crew to keep fighting. Shaking off the damage, the monster rears up just as the archers lock in. Within seconds, a brutal storm of arrows shreds into the mutant hide. Sprinting across the chaos, Li Han demands radar updates from Kuro. The Esper shouts back that a deadly duo is storming straight down 12 o'clock. Lighted up, Li Han barks at Jose, who instantly torches the barricades. A massive wall of fire erupts, forcing the twin beasts to violently back off. Our MC commands the squad to nuke whichever freak jumps the inferno first. Taking the bait, the mutant launches itself right over the blazing flames, straight for their throats, prompting the execution order. Mid-flight, the beast gets absolutely pincushioned by a devastating spear volley. Crashing directly into the roaring flames, the monster screeches in agony. Li Han zeroes in on the final target standing. The heavy hitters unleash another barrage, striking true, but this tanky freak uses its massive shell to block the damage. A panicked rookie stutters, asking if they are just stalling until their ammo goes dry. Clocking that this beast actually has a brain, Li Han signals Jijo to back his play. He vaults aggressively toward the towering nightmare, screaming that he is about to rip its jaws wide open. Without hesitation, our boy thrusts his spear for the lethal kill shot. Jong Ho spots a massive opening. While the beast's jaws are wide open, he slams his spear straight down, pinning one of its thrashing tentacles right to the dirt. "Shut the hell up and just die already," he screams at the monster. But Kuro instantly spots trouble, screeching Jong Ho's name in pure panic. Reacting on pure instinct, Li Han shoves his buddy out of the way, absorbing a brutal tail swipe meant for Jong Ho. The beast finally crumbles to the ground, leaving Li Han gasping and wondering if that was its dying breath. Jong Ho brushes it off, bragging that the attack only shredded his jacket. But mid-sentence, a stray arrow violently buries itself deep into his chest. Li Han screams in horror as his friend crumples to the dirt. Kuro frantically apologizes, completely devastated that he could not block the incoming strike. Still taking an arrow beats, getting shredded by a werewolf any day. Refocusing, Li Han demands Kuro pinpoint exactly where those annoying Elu snipers are hiding. It is officially time to unleash their stealth squad. Stepping out of the shadows, Domingo Li Han's ultimate secret weapon cracks his knuckles, totally ready to hunt. This elite ambush trio is built for speed. Earlier, Lee Han laid out the master plan. They would ride a levitating hoverboard to close the gap in seconds. Kuro is on teleport duty, using his psychic juice to warp them directly into enemy territory. The squad launches forward, ambushing the snipers with lethal precision. Catching them totally off guard, Domingo slices through a hunter before they can even pop a shield. But the warp drains Kuro completely, sending him crashing to his knees. Panting heavily, the psychic admits his mana pool is completely dry. A grim realization hits Lee Han. His entire crew is totally running on fumes. If another wave drops, their only option is running for their lives. But right on cue, a chilling rustle echoes from the pitch-black tree line. Glowing eyes pierce the darkness as a fresh, bloodthirsty werewolf pack bursts from the foliage, sprinting straight for their defensive line. The battered squad grits their teeth, readying for absolute slaughter. Watching their tactical formation, Lee Han realizes these mutts are trying to flank them. There has to be an alpha calling the shots from the shadows. Scanning the horde, he locks eyes with an absolute unit of a monster. A heavily scarred snow-white lycanthrope steps out, oozing pure alpha energy. The beast snarls, flashing razor-sharp fangs at the exhausted cadets. Suddenly, a creepy pitch-black sludge starts bubbling up from the dirt right beneath them. The gooey shadow latches onto Lee Han's boots, locking him completely in place. Stuck and helpless, he admits that suffocating despair is finally starting to choke him out. The alpha tips its head back and unleashes a deafening, blood-curdling roar that shakes the entire forest. Frozen in the sludge, Lee Han desperately scrambles for an escape plan. Just as things look incredibly bleak, he catches glaring lights streaking across the night sky. A tiny spark of hope violently ignites in his chest. Ripping his boots free from the shadowy goop, he screams at the top of his lungs that they are going to live. He orders the squad to grip their weapons tight. They just need to hold the line for a few more seconds. Kuro nods fiercely, hyping himself up for one absolute final stand. The psychic locks in, bracing for the slaughter. Led by the hulking white alpha, the werewolf army stampedes toward the kids, while Lee Han roars a final warning. Out of nowhere, a colossal dropship breaches the clouds and launches a massive steel pod. The payload violently craters into the earth, wiping out half the pack in a blinding shockwave. The sheer force of the blast violently tosses the cadets like ragdolls. As the smoke clears, a super soldier rocking crazy heavy-duty mech armor steps out of the crater, crushing a roasted monster skull beneath his metal boot. The rescuer frankly admits, it is insane these kids are not already corpses. Cut to the aftermath, Jose reaches his hand up toward the warm morning sun. Gazing into the clear sky, he breathes out, calling their survival a legit miracle. Chilling on a bench beside Del Simon, he drops the heavy reality that 50% of their unit got wiped out, yet they somehow walked away. He rambles on, totally geeking out over how insanely overpowered that Psycho Frame mech was. Jose excitedly replays how its cannons literally vaporized the Lycans like it was nothing. Yet despite the pure trauma of the slaughter, he vividly remembers the adrenaline rush of everyone cheering, screaming their lungs out because they actually cheated death. Meanwhile, Del Simon quietly observes Lee Han, who has been completely zoning out, not celebrating at all. The guy is obviously trapped deep inside his own head. Honestly, ever since they barely survived that crazy dimensional rift, all their petty squad drama feels totally pointless. Over in the mental recovery wing, Dmitry Vladimirovich Petrov flags down our boy. He drops his ego straight up, admitting he used to hate Lee Han's guts. But now he is genuinely stoked the dude is still breathing. Dmitry confesses that Lee Han was totally right. He was absolutely not ready to take a life or watch his friends get butchered. After tasting real war, he finally knows exactly who the real villains are. Later isolating in his dorm, Lee Han clenches his fists, swearing he has to level up massively. Without warning, the plaster on his wall starts to crack. A split second later, a giant fist completely obliterates the drywall, bursting straight into his room. Whipping around, Lee Han stares in shock at the insane break-in. Peeking through the fresh crater, a glowing hologram violently demands his presence at a mandatory debriefing. He patches up the massive hole with whatever he can find, completely baffled by the dramatic entrance. Striding down the base's sterile hallways, he gets stalked by Silence, a dude he is convinced is legitimately psychotic. Looking back, he asks who authorized this urgent gathering, prompting the quiet guy to aggressively tap on his smartwatch. The text fires off to Sergeant Red, basically telling the officer to back off and leave him alone. Lee Han awkwardly nods along low-key, wondering if Silence holds a grudge from their last tournament. The duo finally hits one of the massive headquarters inside the Ark. Strolling past security, they make a beeline straight for the tactical war room. John Red spins around annoyed, asking if these guys paged him. Lee Han and the quiet kid stroll up to the table where the sergeant and Del Simon are chilling. Silence aggressively crowds Lee Han's personal space, while Del Simon just sits there completely mute. Annoyed by the awkward vibe, John barks at them to stop hovering and grab a chair. He warns the squad they are going to be stuck here for hours. Up at the podium, a high-ranking official drops a massive bomb. 25% of Level 2 got slaughtered in the training disaster. Stepping up to the mic, the absolute boss of the arc, Alexander Lacour, coldly declares that the commanding officer is going straight into the interrogation chair. They are going to extract the brutal truth behind the massacre, no matter what. He officially drops the mic, confirming this is the Supreme Council's absolute final ruling. The top brass decides to pin the entire disaster straight on Chief Instructor Grossman. Inside the briefing room, John Red and the high-ranking commanders lock down to dissect the chaos. Reviewing the brutal combat footage, one commander drops a bombshell. This wasn't some random raid by low-tier werewolves and hunters. The elusive Elu mages were pulling the strings all along. The room goes ice cold. These rogue spellcasters haven't shown their faces since the Great War. And worse, they are straight up ripping open dimensional portals now. The terrifying reality kicks in. That massive global conflict the ancient prophecy warned about, it is crashing down on them way ahead of schedule. Panic sparks a desperate question. Is it time to pull the Oracle out of cryosleep? Bypassing the panic, John Red totally pivots, announcing that only the letter W remains for the upcoming squad designation. He casually tosses two options on the table, Project White or Project Whiskey. Cut to Del, Simon, Lee Han, and Silence chilling in the waiting area, completely oblivious. The bombshell drops. Del and Lee Han are utterly shocked to find out they are being mashed together into a temporary Black Ops strike force. Never one to waste breath, Silence taps silently away on his holopad and locks in his vote for the codename White. Catching the vibe, Del and Lee Han instantly back him up and lock in the exact same choice. But John Red just smirks, completely overriding them and declaring the new hit squad will be known as Team Whiskey. Kicking his boots up on the sofa, the commander gets ready to dump the insane mission details. Off to the side, Lacour quietly stews, realizing that while waking the Oracle right now sounds like a massive cheat code, they better save that trump card for when things go completely apocalyptic. Breaking his silence, he checks in to see where Sergeant Red stands on the issue. John firmly agrees to keep the Oracle on ice, demanding full green light authority to assemble his own elite hit squad instead. His strategy is brutally simple: bag the enemy targets breathing. Why? Because ripping the truth out of them in an interrogation room is way faster than playing detective. The ultimate objective: hunt down and capture the Elu mages hiding out in Sinweiju. Down in the armory, Octo hypes up the freshly minted level 2 recruits, directing them to grab their baseline, Dragon Tech gear. Lee Han grips a sleek metal polearm, his eyes scanning the craftsmanship before the lethal spearhead suddenly bursts into glowing life. Octo proudly points out that the ultra-rare alloy literally absorbs and weaponizes the user's raw psychic aura. Intrigued, Del Simon pipes up, asking if they can swap out the loadout for something featuring a much slimmer extended edge. The quartermaster shuts him down instantly. Custom weapon drops are strictly locked behind a level 3 clearance. Del just shrugs off the rejection. Not missing a beat, Octo pulls out the next massive upgrade, tossing a compact metallic orb right into the spotlight. Like pure magic, the slick gadget starts hovering off his palm. Lee Han instantly clocks the tech as a legendary airbit. Octo grins, confirming they are rocking the absolute lightest and stripped-down model heavily nerfed to only handle insane mid-air acrobatics. Fast forward, and we get a badass shot of Lee Han strapped in full tactical drip, locking the anti-gravity module straight onto his spine. A random base tech shouts a quick prayer for their survival as the boys sprint out onto the tarmac toward an idling chopper, the flight path, straight into the terrifying Shinju dimensional tier. But to dodge the chaotic aerial strikes, they have to drop far back and hike through absolute hell to reach the kill zone. Taking point, Del Simon formally dubs this suicide mission Operation Mage Hunt. He sets the absolute bottom line. Before step-off bag the high-value target breathing and extract in one piece. Pushing through the rugged wasteland, Lee Han takes charge, locking down their tactical formation with Silence leading, followed by himself, keeping Simon right at the rear. The scene violently shifts to a flashback where John Red grills the rookie about why he actually made the cut for such an unhinged deployment. During this memory, Lee Han points out the obvious flaw, arguing that the roster is packed with absolutely cracked level 3 veterans. John totally validates that take if this were just a raw power ranking. He flips the script, dropping some heavy strategic truth bombs. He reminds the kid how his ragtag squad clawed their way out alive against an endless swarm of grunts while having exactly 0 gear. And that raw survival instinct, John drops the hammer, revealing it is not even his biggest flex. While almost every single veteran dragging themselves out of the rift comes back mentally shattered with heavy PTSD, Lee Han stays ice cold. He explains that dumping a normal human brain into a chaotic bloodbath guarantees a total psychological meltdown eventually. From that twisted angle, John straight up calls Lee Han a certified monster, admitting he seriously pegged the kid as a clinical psychopath for a second. Ripping back to reality, Del Simon watches him, realizing the only thing holding Lee Han back is actual dirt under the fingernails field experience. That exact flaw is why Sergeant Red glued Simon to his hip. Suddenly, another memory flashes, an entire arena losing its mind. As Li Han utterly humiliated, a cocky level 3 veteran, Del Simon had been right there in the mosh pit screaming his lungs out for the underdog, snapping back to the grim present. Simon glares daggers at both Silence and Li Han, swearing to himself that he is going to steal the MVP spot on this drop. Breaking the tension, the point man calls for a breather, splitting their unit down the middle. They hunker down inside a completely nuked out ghost town, bordering a massive, overgrown tree line. The two fragmented crews crash out amidst the shattered concrete to catch their breath, staring out into the shadowy canopy ahead. Li Han gets hit with a brutal wave of grief, hauntingly aware that the ghosts of his fallen brothers are permanently buried somewhere in those woods. Shaking it off, he glances over, just as Silence locks down his heavy tactical mask. The silent assassin tweaks the visor settings. Trying to be a bro, Li Han offers to face the wall, so the guy can pop the lid and finally catch some fresh air. But true to his name, Silence just flashes a quick hand signal, rejecting the privacy entirely. A neon digital text scrolls across the blacked-out visor. "I am not hot." Li Han just chuckles and drops it. Seconds later, the squad boss kills the vibe, dropping a warning that long-range comms are completely jammed from here on out. He orders everyone to instantly sync up to the encrypted short-range, tactical mesh network. Ghosting into the suffocating tree line, Silence blends perfectly into the shadows. Suddenly, his internal HUD flashes blood red, locking onto two hostile Elu, outriders patrolling dead ahead. The tension skyrockets as the oblivious targets march right into the kill box. The entire squad instantly raises their muzzles to light them up, but the commander aggressively signals a ceasefire. Tapping his comms, he delegates the grim execution straight to Silence. Without a single sound, the masked killer launches himself forward, bringing absolute devastation to the oblivious scouts. Boom. The word "end" flashes across Silence's visor like a game over screen. Watching this play out, Li Han is straight up mind-blown, calling the guy's power a literal cheat code that is custom-built for flawless stealth kills in a hyperspeed simulation. Deep in the brush, Silence stays locked in a dead crouch, practically breathing down a scout's neck. Snapping back to the real world, his cold eyes track the two oblivious targets as they weave through the dense timber. His muscles coil. He is mere seconds away from dropping them both, but right before he strikes, a sudden voice hits his earpiece and orders him to hold up. It is Li Han stepping in. He pitches a massive audible, suggesting they shadow these guys instead of flat-out ending them. Del Simon immediately pushes back, demanding to know why they are letting free kills just walk away. But Li Han's logic is straight-up big brain. He points out how the targets are casually strolling toward the rift with zero situational awareness. That kind of relaxed vibe means only one thing: they are just wrapping up a basic scouting run and heading home.